We are going to get going. Welcome to the people who came early. This is a slightly earlier than usual meeting. It's a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair. We usually start at 7, but we've got a really big agenda tonight, so we're all here a little bit early. With me here in the chamber, we have Tariq Lucas from Ward 2, Allison Leary from Ward 1, Randy Block from Ward 4, Alan Lobovitz from Ward 6, and online we have Andrea Downs. Those are the members of the committee. I know other councilors will be joining us, and I will try and welcome and introduce them when they come. We also have some important staff members with us here. We have our clerk, Katie Holden, and Kat Kemet from the planning department. And online on Zoom, we have Jonah Temple from the law department. And I think that's all for now, but I will keep updating. The first item we have before us tonight is a request for a consistency ruling, a discussion. We just talk about these things. We don't vote on them. It's a consistency ruling for 276 Nevada Street. They're seeking a consistency ruling from the Commissioner of Inspectional Services to retain an existing retaining wall that measures approximately 67 feet in length on the right side of the property. And the commissioner is seeking the opinion of the Land Use Committee. So we talk a little about it and he makes his own determination. And I see we have somebody from the petitioner to speak to this, Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Madam Chair. With your permission, I would like to share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay. So good evening, Chair Kelly, members of the Land Use Committee. My name is Lawrence Lee with the law firm of Rosenberg, Freeman and Lee with offices at 246 Walnut Street. This is a consistency ruling request with the Commissioner of Inspectional Services. The commissioner asked for land use feedback on an existing retaining wall on the right side of the property. So this is just a quick image of the memo that the planning department provided. In the second paragraph, it provides some data points in terms of the height of the wall, which is only 2 feet tall, and it tapers down to about 1.2 feet on the right-hand side of the property. This plan is a little bit hard to read, but I do have a zoomed in section of it. This is just a site plan where the right-hand side is Nevada Street, and then the building 1, which is over here, the retaining wall in question is on the right-hand side if you were standing on the street. The next slide really is a zoomed in section of where the retaining wall is and the highlighted notation that the wall was to be removed as part of the special permit plan. Next is really just a picture of the existing conditions as built. The project is pretty much finished. The wall is here where my cursor is. And really the reason behind it is that when construction started, it was our preference or our neighbor's preference to keep the wall as is. The wall is in very good condition, as you can see. We just put in a new fence on top of it, and I think we're just trying to be good neighbors, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does planning want to say anything about this?
No, I think Attorney Lee covered it pretty in depth. It's pretty straightforward, but
Great. Thank you. Let's see what thoughts the committee has. Oh, by the way, we've been joined here in the chamber by Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. Welcome, Councillor Farrell. Yep. Well, we started early, so you're not really late. Councillor Lobovitz, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering what I don't know the background of this. So is it that wall was not on the original site plan when the permit was approved? Is that what we're dealing with here?
I think it's actually the opposite. I think it was on the plan and it was
Right.
an existing wall, but it was marked as to be removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
And they
see.
decided to keep it because, as you can see, my opinion, it looks like it's in great shape. And the neighbor said, actually, we wish you would keep it rather than take it away. But it was shown on the plan,
Okay.
but it was shown as to be removed.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I remember when we approved this, my memory is that it only took us one meeting and it was pretty straightforward. The petitioner and your client did a very good job in the community outreach and the design The question is, would we approve this special permit if that retaining wall was said it was going to be included? Yes. So yeah, this is fine. I'm fine with the retaining wall. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that Counselor Lucas just said. I don't think this is that difficult a decision. Thanks.
But the commissioner does like to check in on this and to hear our thoughts before he makes decisions on this. I've seen more consistency rulings in this commissioner's tenure than in the previous 10 years of our former commissioner. So he likes to have some input from us. Anything else? If not, I also want to mention that we've been joined by two other members of the planning department online on Zoom, Sandria Berman and Katie Wewell, who just spoke. Oh, I thought I said Counselor Dunn was online. I'm sorry if I missed you when I was mentioning the counselors who are on the committee. It was,
I'm online. I just have a short comment.
oh, are you raising your hand to speak? Not
Yes.
to be recognized. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I agree with Councilors Block and Farrell. I don't think this is a major issue and we should just go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I'm getting a sense that this is an easy yes by everybody. We don't, as I said, we don't vote on it, but it looks like everyone thinks this is a please proceed. And hopefully Anthony Ciccarelli will do that. We are now being joined by President Laredo, who is a member of the committee. He's walking into the council, and we're going to move on to the next item. So Mr. Lee, you can stay standing exactly where you are. The next item is number 156-25, which is a request to allow ground floor residential use to allow 3 stories to exceed FAR and associated parking waivers at 1062 Beacon Street. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Good evening once again, and I'm going to share my screen with your permission, Chair. Okay. So good evening, Chair Kelly, once again, members of the Land Use Committee. For the record, again, Lawrence Lee with the law firm of Rosenberg, Friedman and Lee. Our office at 246 Walnut Street in Newtonville. This is our second land use hearing. The last one was held in June of 2025. With me tonight is Mariana DeGetti from MGD Architects, and my client is also on Zoom. So just as a quick recap of the site, here are some basic information. The property is located at 4 corners next to Whole Foods in a business district and is what I refer to as sandwiched by the 2 aqueducts, which is the Cochituate and Sudbury aqueducts. Our project requires a special permit for the proposed 4 residential dwelling unit building. The upper floors of the building were reduced in terms of the FAR from 1.34 to 1.29 from the prior iteration that we showed you. It remains at 3 stories, but under 36 feet in height. It is a residential design with gable roofs. The unit sizes are approximately 1,750 square feet each, which is slightly reduced. Remain unchanged are the parking layout of the first floor. The units are 3 bedrooms with elevator access. One of the things that I want to point out is that the MWRA has reviewed our plans and have issued what they call an 8M permit for this project. So here is a zone map that really shows the layout of the property. Where you see the green are the public and Cochituate and Sudbury aqueducts. You can see that where Whole Foods, where my cursor is, this is where Whole Foods is, and it's really, our property is really an extension of that business use zone property. This is an aerial photo of the location of the property. And to the left of us is the Whole Foods parking lot and the building. Under here where the aqueduct is the current shared driveway between 1062 and the 2-family house at 1058 Beacon. At the prior hearing, there was a question regarding a fence that was previously there. So here's a photograph of the fence. You can see here to our left is 1058 Beacon, which is being built at that point. And it's a relatively new building within the last several years. The fence was there. We don't know who installed it, but clearly you can tell that it was in very poor shape. What happened was that my folks thought they were doing a great thing by replacing it with a new one. And turned out that the MWRA did not want that replaced for whatever reason. And so what it is now is we moved it based on their recommendations and requests. And so this next photograph shows the current conditions. So to our left is 1058 Beacon. On the right-hand side, you see the Whole Foods parking lot. And this is a view of the pathway that is over the aqueduct. The same location, if we're turning the other way, the opposite side, on the right-hand side is all MWRA land. Really, this is the shared driveway, and this entire length of the driveway is actually on MWRA property. This is where Beacon Street is. It's just by way of some reference points. This is in the same location as we're turning towards the Whole Foods parking lot. So as you can see, it is right at the edge of this business, very busy parking lot. I think we've all probably been there and shopped there at one point or another. And so the next several pictures really show how busy this parking lot gets in this particular location. This next slide is a GIS measurement of the distances from our property to our neighboring properties. And as you can see, our closest neighbor is really to our right-hand side, which is 1054-1056 Beacon Street. You may not be able to see it, but I highlighted it. It's about 69 feet from our lot line to where the house is. Across the street is about 96 or 94 feet. To our neighbors in the rear, which is the shared driveway to our to 1058 Beacon, 115 feet, and 113 feet from the rear property line to the edge of the Whole Foods building. I think that gives us a sense of how far we are from our closest neighbor. Here are some renderings of what we showed last time of the proposed building. As you can see, it's intended to be a residential feel and design. You'll see that the various images where the garage door is set back and the prominence of the entryway. The first floor garage is going to be shielded with trellises, with landscaping, which will soften up the building and gives more of a residential feel. Some more renderings of the property. Here's a 3D image of the proposed building as it relates to the Four Corners district. So here, as you can clearly tell, this is a very busy business district, various zones, MRs, BU zoned properties. The intersection of Walnut and Beacon is quite busy. This is an image, a 3D image of the proposed building as it relates to the rest of the neighborhood. Here's another 3D image of the proposed building, showing looking at it, if you have a drone looking down above the Whole Foods parking lot. And what we did as part of the analysis here is to show what would be a sample by right rendering of what the footprint will look like. This is an image of a 2-story building, which is one example of a by right building. And just as a way of comparing, because we heard some comments about massing and scale, and the uniqueness of this is that the footprint is pretty much the same. The only really major difference is the 2-story versus the 3 stories, as well as the uses. So a by right use could be mixed use, which would be commercial on the first floor, residential up above. It may also be fully commercial. One other possible uses is that if Whole Foods decides to use this as a parking lot, this would be another methodology in which this business use district can be utilized as an expansion of the Whole Foods business. Here's another sample by right rendering showing a sample 2-story building. Again, as you can see the illustration here, parking will remain on the first floor, which was really different. Not any different from the special permit. The upper floors can be commercial or residential use. The rest of these slides are those that we've seen in the past, and if I can go through them quickly and we can come back to them as you see fit. Here's just a floor plans that we can see on the interior. We had previously provided turning radius for the various parking spaces in the proposed parking space garage on the first floor. And then followed by just the layouts. So these are flats. I think one of the things that's a key feature here is an elevator access where my cursor is. The units do not have interior stairs between floors, living spaces within the units. These are 3 bedrooms, again, about 1,700, 1,750 square feet. The upper floors have access to a roof, which will be for residential uses. And these are the 2D elevations of the proposed building. We can come back to any of these if you wish. Here's a landscape plan, and this is a good way to kind of show the uniqueness of the shape and the property. This triangular piece where my cursor is actually part of our property. However, there's an easement for the Whole Foods property to use as part of their driveway. So this is the edge of where we can go with respect to our building. This whole section here is the aqueduct, the Cochituate Aqueduct. As you can see, the Sudbury Aqueduct is on the upper side on this particular picture. And we'll close with this rendering of the house. And I will stop share, and this will be my presentation. And I believe also there were a number of emails that were sent over to the council from various members of the public in support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We did receive quite a few emails in the last few days from neighbors and other residents about this. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? Please come on up to the. Oh, yeah. Planning, sorry. Well, I was going to let them. Would you like to say something first? It's fine. I just saw, I knew people were here to speak, so. Sorry, I did go out of order for you.
Madam Chair, this is Katie. I am the one that am assigned this petition, so I'm happy to present, or if you want to go to public comment, and I'll be on hand for questions if you want.
No, we'll keep it consistent. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, I skipped over you at first.
No worries. Yep. So it's Katie Leewell from planning. So we just have the routine sort of planning presentation here. This is petition 156-25 for 1062 Beacon Street. This is a 4-unit project in the Business 1 zone that requires a special permit for the use as well as some dimensional waivers, or the ground floor use. The subject property consists of 6,604 square feet of land in the Four Corners neighborhood. The site is located within a Business 1 zoning district. The area consists of a mix of uses and zoning districts. So there's commercial uses nearby as well as residential, and the site is flanked by 2 aqueducts. The petitioner submitted revised plans in September showing the project reflecting largely the same zoning relief, just with an FAR reduction from 1.34 to 1.29. And just a couple of notes that the project revisions result in a reduced FAR. However, parking, so that first story, much of it does not count towards the FAR because of its location in a business district. So in the ordinance, it notes that in all other districts except for residential, the parking does not count towards the FAR. And the residential use on the ground floor relief is due to the residential parking and other associated residential programming uses location on the ground floor. So just because they're located there requires the special permit. And the building is entirely residential. We have the standard special permit criteria to consider, as well as a parking criteria due to an undersized parking stall within that ground level garage. Just some project updates. So the revised plans show reduced massing from the two upper stories of the buildings. That represents approximately 330 square feet. This was achieved through minor modifications, such as incorporating more projections and recessing areas along the side and rear elevation. So it also creates a little bit more visual interest as well. Planning did note the ground level may be constrained in some instances with locations of both bicycle parking and the trash bins. However, if the petition is approved and the plans are further developed, the petitioner may want to reconsider the locations of the trash receptacles and bike parking so they're not impeded by parked cars. And it would also allow for a shorter distance between the lobby door and the locations, just keeping the end user in mind. And lastly, the planning analysis. We believe it's an appropriate location for the 4-unit residential use. It could also provide a transition from the commercial uses at Four Corners to the residential uses to the east. The site is well located to transit with both Newton Center and Newton Highlands Green Line stations less than a mile from the subject property. We also note that at 35.8 feet tall and an FAR of 1.29, the proposed project may be somewhat larger in size and scale than other residential buildings nearby. However, as I said earlier, it could provide a transition between commercial uses and residential uses further east on Beacon Street. And the unit sizes further the goals set forth in the comprehensive plan, providing a diversity of unit types and sizes. So that is all from planning. Happy to bring up any plans or answer any questions about this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell, and I'm glad we stuck to the correct order because I think many of the things in your analysis will be helpful for the public to have heard before they speak. So thank you again. Okay, now we'll take comments from the public. Sir, in the back, you raised your hand first. I think yes, with the glasses first. Just come to the microphone. Give us your name and address.
Thank you for my time. My name is Craig Nest. I live at 930 Walnut Street. I was present at the initial meeting in June. One of the things I want to request, if possible, as I was reading the guidelines for special permit, and the reason I'm bringing it up now, it says, please notify chairperson in advance if you need additional time. I don't think I may need a lot of additional time, but I wanted to see if I could request it because it told me to do it
We would normally give you 3 minutes to speak.
right.
Do you think that you
I
can
go
say what you
over
want to
this
say?
So I just wanted to bring it to your attention of what the, if I need that. The other thing, just to get started, I did read the regulation in terms of special permits may only be issued if the use of the site will be in harmony with the general purpose. I generally disagree with that for a variety of different reasons, which I'll get into. Many of the concerns, and I appreciate that planning went over that. Originally, I believe the site had about 7,200 square feet, give or take. 300 square feet difference, 330 square feet difference is kind of insufficient. And it gets me kind of concerned if I'm hearing about trash bins and bicycles being a problem or even being mentioned in a development like this, that there's a concern for that. That tells me that there's a broader concern if we're worried about where the trash bins go whereas bicycles may go. The concerns I just like to reiterate, I'm all for the development of the property. I just think it's way too large. The residential use for the parking on the first floor and the FAR calculation is a bit concerning. It doubles the impervious cover. There's lack of open space. We often speak in this chamber about open space. There's very little open space in this particular development. The footprint size of the units, et cetera, are large. It's going from a single family to 4 luxury units with elevators. 3 stories, 36 feet. Once again, very large, out of character. So I would propose maybe reducing it to the 2 units. Like I said, there's no meaningful change in the project as far as I can see. I appreciate the abutter letter went out for the initial meeting. And there was some concerns with people in the chamber as well as people that write letters. There wasn't necessarily any effort, not that it's required, to reach out to the people that had concerns. I would think about, as being a good neighbor, that would be something maybe you'd want to do. And there was no effort to communicate this prior to this meeting. And I think it would have been good practice just to kind of reach out, see what you were thinking. So this leads to actually what Attorney Lee had said in one of his prior presentations about wanting to be a good neighbor in citizenship. And, I would define that as taking one's neighbors and the feedback into consideration. I also attempted to submit a photo of the current property. I don't know if Lee has a copy of that or would be willing to bring it up, because I was told I can't bring the photo up. But I want to mention the condition of the property that was purchased on 10/22/2020. And I believe it was purchased actually for the street address, $1,062,500. And unfortunately, being a good neighbor, I think, and going for a special permit gives some responsibility for the owner. And the house is really overgrown. It's in disrepair. I wanted to demonstrate that it was really not well kept up for the 5 years. So I think part of being a good neighbor and expressing good citizenship when you're asking for a special permit is to keep the house that was sold for $1 million, to at least be keeping up the last 5 years for the neighborhood.
You do see that you're like now just 9 seconds over. So do you think you've got
Well,
another minute's worth or what?
Yeah, that maybe 30 seconds. Just in summary, I'm in favor of some type of form of a property there. I think, like I said, it wasn't necessarily meaningful change. My understanding was that it was going to go back and make a good faith effort to do that change, perhaps communicate with the community. And also, like I said, I draw the attention to the picture. I mean, the planning department, I don't know if they're able to put their picture up on their cover slide, but the house, unfortunately, has not been kept up. And I'm just concerned why that hadn't been happened. It happened during the last, 5 years. And I appreciate what it may look like, but it hasn't looked like that for the last 5 years. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Did you send us those images, those photos?
Yeah, I did.
We received those today.
Well, I was trying to do it in the concept of bringing it up so I could demonstrate what I'm saying, because I think it's better for you to see what it is versus me telling you what it is, but it is not consistent with what I would expect. So,
Thank you very much. Next up, if you can try and speak, I see you're prepared for that. Try and speak right into that. Thanks. Give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Golden. I live right across the road from 1062 Beacon at 19 Garland. I'm back to support this development. As someone who lives very close to the property, I'm thrilled to see that instead of being what it would be by right, a mixed use or commercial development, that this has the chance to be a residential development. Residential development is what we desperately need here in Newton. We need more relatively small-sized houses that can be good for single families or downsizers. And I think this really fits the bill. It's attractive, it's climate friendly, it's exactly aligned with the things we need here in Newton. I take no issue with the fact that the developer has not kept up the thing that is going to be torn down. I would recommend that you simply approve it so they can get on with putting up the nice new, very appropriately designed house. I also disagree with the previous commenter's assertion that the developer has not reached out to the neighborhood. I have talked with Mr. Schiffman. He addressed concerns. So anyways, thank you for your time. Please do approve the special permit. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Ms. Golden. While the next person comes up, because I believe, did I see another hand back there? Oh, sir, come. I'm just going to mention that we've been joined here by Jen Kyra from the Planning Department, and Councilor Maliki is on Zoom. Again, go ahead, sir. Just give us your name and address.
Thank you. Bruce Beck. I am 1056 Beacon Street, the immediate next house up the hill. And well, Mr. Lee is right. Every abutter wants smaller and lower. And I wish that were the case. But I do think this project represents a reasonable compromise. And I think that it also represents a reasonable buffer between the very busy Four Corners area and the beginning of the residential strip. Beacon Street. I spoke with Mr. Schiffman and we discussed trash cans and screening of the garage. He knows that's a high priority. I'm hoping that there is ultimately room in the garage or somewhere indoors for trash receptacles. And that the planting will be perennial and evergreen as opposed to something that'll be stark in the winter. But overall, I do support it, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beck. Come on up, sir.
Dr. Enrique Rosero, resident of Garland Street. When I come out of my driveway and turn into Garland, this is the first house I see. In fact, if Mr. Lee wants to put up the rendering of the 3D, I can show you where my house is, and I have direct sight to this new project. I just want to comment on several things that I heard. I don't think this is disproportionate for the neighborhood. I think my house is taller. The house immediately in front of it is taller. I think we need to welcome new families to the neighborhood. We use that aqueduct to walk our dog, and we want this development to go forward so we can walk with peace and tranquility. The people not represented in this room are the people that probably will live in this neighborhood. People like my friends that want to move closely and they cannot. So take that in mind. I think one of the recommendations that you have received consistently from planning is that it fulfills all the criteria in terms of safety and regulations. It is unfortunate that this project has to go through this back and forth. It is a necessary cost, a necessary time, and it communicates that Newton is not open for business. And this is something that we need to change. This council has the potential to be more neighborhood-oriented, resident-oriented, business-friendly, and help solve the residence crisis, the housing crisis here in Massachusetts. So I encourage you to do your job, stop delaying this, and approve it right away. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the chamber want to speak to this? Is there anybody on the Zoom call who would like to speak to this? I don't see any hands, so we will take it into committee and see questions and comments from committee members. Anyone? Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this project has been before us for quite a while now. I've had ample time to go on site, look at the property, look at the maps, the information, speak with the developer's attorney, which I found helpful. And we did get quite a lot of, we heard from our constituents, all of them in favor of this. And this is exactly the kind of development that we do need in Newton, with an elevator building, has the opportunity for people to downsize. And it's in an area that's walkable. I mean, you're right near a Whole Foods and across the street from a Walgreens. And if you want to go for a longer walk, you go to the Green Line or Newton Center. And I think I've come to really think that this project is really good and appropriate, and especially to remove the dilapidated house that's been there for the last 5 years, just sort of falling apart. So I intend to support this and vote for it when the time comes.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Councilor Downs.
Hi, thank you, Chair. May I ask to have the by right comparison again? The massing of the current proposal versus the by right proposal. The current proposal went by awfully fast, and I'd just like to look at the two. And while Mr. Lee is doing that, I want to just note getting an 8M permit for permanent construction near, which is what MWRA gives to put anything near its infrastructure, is really difficult. So finding a way to squeeze anything in here that's attractive is quite the feat. And keeping both of the tops of the aqueducts open is something I strongly support. So that's your by right rendering. And can you give me the massing of the current proposal, please? Right. So if I'm right, the footprint is about the same,
Correct.
but you're not going to get the sloped roofs. And if you look at the houses on either side, the by right will look a lot more like the Walgreens and a lot less like the residences on either side. Four Corners, with the development of the Beacon Street property down near the Citizens Bank, is starting to become a new neighborhood. It's a place I spend an awful lot of time in, unfortunately, or fortunately, because Whole Foods is where I go when we need something. I think this is totally appropriate, and I would like to see it move forward, and I will be voting for it.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, when this project was before us earlier in the term, I said this project is going to appear much bigger than it appears on paper. And the reason why I said that at the time is because the total gross floor area, which at the time was approximately 8,800 square feet, and that counts towards the FAR of the previous 1.34. Of that 8,800 square feet, only 500 of it was on the first floor and everything else was above, making it appear bigger on the second and third stories. And I understand, Mr. Lee, you have reduced the total square footage by approximately 300 square feet. Shaking your head, yes, thank you. So you're at 8,500 square feet. And again, I presume you still have 500 square feet on the ground floor, first floor, is that right?
First floor has not changed.
Okay. Where exactly are you taking off the other 300 square feet?
Perhaps what I can do is defer that to Mariana Degetti, who can answer that question.
Sure, Mariana.
Yes, hello, good evening. Mariana Dagati from MGD Plus. And the answer to the councilor's question is that we have retail area from the second and third floor. Previously, there were some areas where the floor plans of the units expanded in overhang sections. What we have done is just reduce those areas in order to reduce the massing on the upper floors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful. But I am still at my original comments from earlier this term, where the project appears it's going to be big, I think too big for this small little area. Some folks have said that this is a gentle transition into a residential neighborhood. Respectfully, I disagree. I call it an aggressive transition into a residential neighborhood. Potentially, I know they're going to say no, but I would ask the petitioner if they would take off a half a story and make this a 2.5 story building, and that would fit. But this is too big for the lot. So I'm a no on this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Farrell, followed by Counselor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I think this project is terrific, actually. Responding to the last comment, I do think it is a great transition from a commercial space, a very open, barren transition space, into the more residential space. I don't think it will be bigger, certainly not bigger than what is down 100 yards from on the other side of Beacon Street, which is a monstrous building and brand new. But I think it also responds to some of the issues that we're facing in this city, and that is trying to find appropriate, well-designed space on curious little pieces of land in a city that, as the mayor told us last night, is kind of landlocked. I think this and I believe it's going to be a high-end unit given the elevators and the other attentions. I think it's going to be of great interest to people who might want to downsize in Newton into very nice housing, which obviously will make other housing available for hopefully rehabilitation rather than tear downs. We see much too much of taking down a single home and coming up with a very big home of 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 square feet. This doesn't do that. It is a large building, but it will accommodate many families. I think it's very well designed. I think it does honor the architecture of the neighborhood. Yes, it is a little bit bigger, but I think it does honor the architecture. I also think it doesn't exacerbate our terrible parking problem in this city by having parking underneath the housing itself. I think that's very plus. I would hope that we would look at this as an example of the kind of housing we would like to see more people, more developers build. I am concerned that more and more concerned as I participate here, I'm really concerned about the length of time it takes us to get through these projects. And I hope that we as a committee and as a council will begin to look at speeding up this process in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. Guess we're looking forward to more meetings. We're going to speed things up.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to see I guess the garage slide that showed the parking for this development. Could someone pull that up? Maybe someone from planning. If they
Looks
have-
like Mr. Lee is trying to
I have
do.
it if
Okay,
we're ready.
Either one, anybody.
Plan or elevation is what you were looking for, Councillor Block.
The plan.
Okay, she got it right.
Yeah. So just maybe with the cursor, can you just count off the parking spaces that we're looking at? Is it four on the right?
Yep. So there's 4 over here. I know it's kind of tricky with the pattern behind it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 along that back wall.
Yeah.
There's 2 over here along the
That's
bottom.
5, 6.
Yeah. Well, so 6. There's 1 compact stall where my cursor is, if you can see it.
Right,
And
right.
there's 2
And
more.
they've asked for relief on that one stall.
Yep.
size. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And then
And
2
then 2
more
over
on
here.
that side. And now, do we have a turning radius study of these? I mean, this is,
I think the applicant indicated they submitted one, but also in the planning memo, we note that they meet the appropriate aisle for the project. But if Attorney Lee would like to pull that up.
I can.
I'm just interested in planning if you've seen a parking design that compact elsewhere, and how does that work? Thank you, Mr. Lee. This is so where is this turned around at the 4? The
Right.
4 spaces in the front were.
Could you make it a little bit bigger, maybe?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Yeah,
Oh,
okay, so I see, oh, yeah, it's just sort of rotated, so that the left, the 2 spaces to the left, one of those is the compact space that you need relief for, right? And then
Right.
and
This is the
then,
compact.
so you have those 2, and then the 4 at the bottom, and then 2 more above.
If I may also speak to Councilor Block's
Please.
a question relating to other similar projects. So I was involved in the California Street, 184 California / Los Angeles in which it's a 20-unit development with a garage parking on the first floor, tandem parking. We received parking waivers, and there were folks who purchased those units. They drive small and modest-sized cars, and it's worked so far. So I anticipate here it would be similar situation. Folks who purchase units here, they will not be driving large pickup trucks or SUVs. I would anticipate them driving smaller cars to fit in the parking garage.
So sort of a market self-selection.
It really is. It does work. Folks have declined to purchase units in the other project because for one reason or another, it didn't fit their needs.
Sure. When I hear my colleagues ask for the by right comparison, I don't really hear the number of parking stalls or the number of different families that are expected in the by right comparison. So would that be 2-family or 3-family? What, Mr. Lee, maybe you could just enlighten us.
Yes, I can. So it really depends. What it is commercial uses in the ordinance changes in terms of the use and the parking requirements. So office versus restaurant will be a different calculation. So it really depends on what the use is going to be, which then drives the parking requirement.
Yes, and if the use for a by right was all residential, as this is, how many units would that be?
It would be 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and we don't know how many dwelling units can fit, and that's only on the second floor. First floor still has to be commercial use in a by right situation.
Okay. So much for that comparison. Well, I find this I'm worried about the congestion that we see in this design. And if this is the sort of thing we want to encourage, I'm concerned. And of course, this intersection, this is very close to a very busy intersection. So vehicles will be coming out of this driveway and trying to enter the traffic stream. Well, I'm agnostic on this at this point. It does feel large and it does feel congested, and it doesn't feel to me like this is a great idea. I wish it were a little smaller. The lot is very small, and putting four units on this lot seems quite a lot. Those are my thoughts for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Block. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to the comparison with the by right alternative, because in special permit context, I always personally feel that's an extremely important comparison. So if I have it correct, under the by right, it would be 2 stories, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And you would be able to build the FAR at 1.5, is that correct?
1.
1. All right. So and you're at 1.229 now. So you would have a somewhat smaller, you may not have a smaller footprint, but you'd have a smaller building, correct? Smaller in FAR?
Correct.
So under the by right, could you actually expand the footprint of the building from what you have now?
No.
No. So you've met, and that's because of setback requirements?
That's correct. The footprints are the same between the 2.
All right. So again, it's always important to me to understand this. So your footprint would be the same. Your height would be down a story.
Yes.
presumably if your height's down a story, that takes away all your FAR concerns and you get to the 1.0. Is that just about it? So are we really, I'm just asking my colleagues, are we really talking about the difference between one story or not? Is that the gist of it?
Correct.
Can I ask the planning department, Ms. Wewell, is that your assessment as well?
I'm sorry, so the question was the number of stories in the by right and special permit, or?
I'm just trying to understand the difference between the by right and the special permit. So by right, they're not even here. We get a 2-story rather than a 3-story building. We get the exact same footprint. We get no articulation on the roof, for example, because we have no control over that.
I believe so. I mean, it's hard to kind of think of the hypothetical. They could really kind of articulate it however they want within those limits. But I think you're on the right track.
And if you had your by right alternative, where would you park?
Same place.
There would
First
not be
floor.
any parking.
There will be parking on the first floor. It'll be the similar.
No, but
concept.
under a by right alternative, where would you park? On the first floor as well?
Same thing, exactly.
All right. That's helpful. I think I understand the differences. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All set, President Laredo? All set. Thank you. Counselor Lobovitz.
So I thought there was one other difference, which is the requirement for commercial space, which this plan does not include. Is that correct in terms of the by right? There needs to be commercial space?
I see Mr. Lee wants to
Yeah,
answer that.
I can answer that. I think President Laredo mentioned about the dimensional changes or differences between the by right and the special permit in terms of the use, as you mentioned in Councilor Lebowitz. Yes, you do need a commercial component on the first floor in the by right situation.
Yeah, so that is a difference, and I wanted to talk about that just for a minute. I'm actually curious, and again, through the chair, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. But when was this zone created that required the commercial space?
Ms.
Anybody-
Wewell, do you
any-
know that, or Mr. Lee?
I do not have the
5 years
answer to
ago,
that.
10 years ago? What's that?
Ms. Wewell says she does not, and Mr. Lee is shaking his head. I'm
Not off the
shaking my
top
head.
of my head without research.
Yeah,
I believe many of the business zones were created or last updated in the 80s.
okay. 80s. Thank you. So, there's a lot of discussion within the community, within the city, about the need for commercial space. And I'm sort of weighing that. I think that to me is a major consideration here. People say we need more commercial space, but if we approve this, we'll have less commercial space. And the original intention was to have the commercial space. Now, if it's true that this was done 40 years ago, perhaps the thinking now would be changed based on the comments that we've heard today, the need for more residential property, smaller units, more accessible, closer to public transportation, et cetera. So that is really where I'm at in terms of, the difference between the by right, in addition to the massing. I appreciate that. But the commercial space, especially in an area like this where perhaps it could be more of a commercial space, I don't think there are many small stores in that area. And, right at that, in the corners there. And this might be a perfect opportunity for small business owners, given the location and the amount of traffic and Whole Foods being right there and all that. So that's where I'm a little bit hung up. I'm very reluctant to accept a special permit when there is a by right option that has some value to the community as well. So I just wanted to bring that up for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lobovitz. I'm mindful of the hour and how many more things we have before us. I'm going to say a few words about this. I don't see any more hands up. I think given the shape constrictions of this site, that this is an incredibly terrific solution. I think architecturally, it's lovely and tries to fit in with the residential character of the neighborhood. People have spoken about the roof lines, the ability to have that bottom floor parking open with maybe trellising on the outside. And as Councillor Lobovitz was pointing out, it is a lot about trade-offs. If we had first floor commercial, we would not be having the on-site parking, and then there's a big parking problem with this building. So I look at that. I think 4 units, not enormous ones, of housing close to an area like this is a really positive thing. I agree fully with almost everything that Councillor Farrell said earlier. I know we're both surprised by that, but I do think that this is a very appropriate transitioning from that huge residential thing that he pointed out that's happening a little bit down the street on Beacon, and even from Whole Foods and across the street to a residential neighborhood. For me, the trade-offs here are all worth it. I love that these are accessible units. I love that they're smaller. Not everybody wants a yard. And I think this is a terrific project, and I will be very happy to be voting in favor of it. I'd like to see if we can move this on in some way tonight and get onto the other projects before we get onto Riverside. Would anyone like to make a motion? 6.
I thought it was, but I just wanted to double check. I'll move to hold, to end the public hearing. Thank you.
Great, let's vote on that. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. Would you like to make another motion?
I'd like to move to accept the application for the special permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lobovitz. Let's look at the findings and the council order, the draft council order.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everyone see that okay? Or should I zoom in or?
It could be a little tiny bit bigger, I think.
Okay. Okay, so we have the 4 standard special permit criteria and the parking criteria, as well as the FAR. So the site's an appropriate location for this project because of its location in a Business 1 zoning district, and the project also exceeds the required lot area per unit for residential units in this zone. Will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the area does consist of a variety of housing types and uses. Will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because all of the required parking is accommodated on site. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Literal compliance with the parking standards, including the width and depth of stalls, is impracticable for that 1 stall due to the irregular shape of the lot, and the lot is constrained by its location adjacent to 2 aqueducts. And the FAR of 1.29 is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood because the area features a variety of uses and residences with varying sizes and scale of the neighborhood. So we'll move on to the conditions. So we have this standard plan referencing condition referencing the site plan as well as the updated architectural plans and a landscape plan. This is an O&M plan that engineering looks for and to be recorded as well. We have our standard pest and rodent control condition, our standard construction management plan condition, our standard building permit condition, and then lastly, the standard occupancy, and then there's a couple more, sorry. The landscaping and temp CO condition. So these are pretty standard conditions for this scale of project.
Thank
And
you,
that-
Ms. Thank you, Ms. Wewell.
That concludes it for.
Thank you. I forgot I was going to say one other thing addressing some of the concerns of Councillor Block over parking and congestion. I have designed more parking lots and garages than I care to admit in public over the course of my now almost 40-year career as a site planner and landscape architect, and this looks fine to me. It's a one-turn radius. There's a 24 feet between the aisles. That's what you see in any, that's as generous as you're going to see in any parking lot. So I don't have that concern. Other things come before us that are very congested and tight and do not look like they have enough room, or you have to do a 3 or 4 point turn to get in or out. This one looks so much better than that to me. I just wanted to mention that. Did you have a comment, Councillor Farrell? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to comment, I think the neighbors are correct, that property like this needs to be better maintained. It is a terrible eyesore for the neighbor right now. And I would hope that the developer would speak to the owner about cleaning it up as quickly as possible. And then we would all keep our eye on that in future issues. And the second being about the parking, we can't protect ourselves from ourselves. I think the parking looks just fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I see Attorney Lee nodding about the cleanup.
Noted. Thank you.
Maintenance. So good point to reiterate, and thank you, sir, for bringing it up also. I think we're ready to vote. Councillor Block?
Given the determinations that we need to make, I'm a very unenthusiastic yes.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Farrell?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly? Aye. Councillor Leary?
An enthusiastic aye.
Councillor Lobovitz?
Aye.
Councillor Lucas?
No.
President Laredo? Six to one and with one abstention. Motion passes. Thank you. Pass it on to your client. Although you're probably going to stay standing at that podium for the next item, I suspect. It's item number 220-25, which is a request to allow 3 attached single-family dwellings with dimensional relief at 16 to 20 Winter Street. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
It is I once again. So good evening once again. Chair Kelly, members of the Land Use Committee. My name is Lawrence Lee with the law firm of Rosenberg, Freeman and Lee. This is our second land use hearing. The last one was on July 22nd. Again, with me is MGD Architects, Mariana Daghetti. With your permission, I would like to share my screen, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so since this is the second time we're before you, I'm going to go fairly quickly in terms of just reorienting the property. Just as a quick recap, the property is located in the Upper Falls Historic District, which is just south of Route 9, as you can see on this map here. We went before the Upper Falls Commission 4 times, as you may remember. So those are the hearing dates that you see on the screen in May, June, August, and October of 2024. What we are doing is that we are preserving the existing 2-family house, adding on to it, renovating it, and we do have an approval or certificate of appropriateness from the commission, the Historic District Commission. So since last time, what we've done is that we've updated our plan. So there turns out to be that there were some human mathematical errors that were found post the land use hearing. VTP Associates had corrected that site plan, and as a result, our lot coverage turns out have been in compliance at 23.2%. Open space increased to 58.8%. In addition to that, we have received 3 letters of support from our neighbors, Mr. Abley, Mr. Packard, and Mr. Lanza, who have addressed, I think there were some questions that were raised with respect to pedestrian safety, parking, and traffic concerns that were raised or asked at the last hearing. This is a comparison and as the planning department noted in their planning memo, and we've talked about it in the past. Oh, sure, of course. FAR does not count in a single family attached dwelling comparison, but what we're doing is we really try to calculate the FAR in relation to what would be, we talked about previously, the by right. And we talked about previously in other petitions where the FAR calculation is different, even though the building may be the same between a two-family use and a single-family attached dwelling use. So in this particular example, if this were two-family, the building would be counted as 0.53 FAR, where the by right FAR is 0.50 with a 0.02 bonus that's allowed in the by right FAR table uses. But because this is a single-family attached dwelling, certain changes are calculated differently. The FAR is calculated slightly differently, and you yield a 0.64 calculation. The other thing that was noted in the prior meeting was that in terms of the square footages of the units, here you have a lopsided two-family where one of the units was over 3,500 square feet, where the other unit was quite undersized. And as you can see on the right-hand side column, the current iteration really balances out the three unit sizes. So you have three pretty much equal or very close to equal size units as a result of the renovation. This is just a zoomed in of the zoning chart of the updated site plan. As you can see here, the lot coverage has been corrected. The open space has also been corrected, which meets the requirements. This is just a photo of the certificate of appropriateness that was issued by this district commission. Next is a copy of the site plan that's been uploaded as the new updated site plan, along with the landscape plan that shows pervious materials that are being used. These are the light gray materials here, 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 and here are all winters on the right-hand side here. Sure. And this is the layout of the three units. As I mentioned previously, it balances out the three units and their sizes. The renderings and elevations have not changed. The exterior of the building remains as approved by the Historic District Commission. And these are the images, which again were shown last time. And I can go back to any one of these if you choose. That's just the existing home compared with the rendering of the proposed building. And that wraps up my recap presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Let's hear from planning. Sandria, is this you?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Bear with me as I go ahead and share my screen. Okay, believe we have this in place. And I apologize. I'm just going to switch over here. Okay. All right. So as Mr. Lee said, this is petition 220-25 for 1620 Winter Street. And it's a request for a special permit to construct a rear addition to an existing two-family dwelling and to create a three-family dwelling. This was first heard on July 22nd of 2025, and this is the second time they're coming back to us. And again, the aerial map here, you'll see Winter Street to the north, Chestnut Street to the west. The subject property is located in a multi-residence 1 district, and it is in the Newton Upper Falls Historic District. The property is currently improved with a two-family Greek Revival cottage-style dwelling that was constructed in 1845. The zoning in the immediate area and surrounding neighborhood is mixed, including Business 1, Multi-Residence 1, and manufacturing zones. And nearby uses include single-family, two-family, multifamily, business, and manufacturing uses. You'll note from the updated zoning review memo that the total amount of zoning relief for this project has been reduced since the opening of the public hearing. The petitioner's proposal no longer requires relief for lot coverage, as prior calculations were inaccurate. The updated calculations now show that the project is in compliance with 23.2% of lot coverage, where 25% is the maximum allowed. Aside from lot coverage, all other items for relief have remained the same, including relief for the use, setbacks, parking, and retaining walls. Again, some criteria to consider when reviewing this proposal: that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed 3 single-family attached dwellings is designed, that the design of the dwellings will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the proposed single-family attached dwellings is designed, that access to over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and finally, that literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable due to the nature, use, or location, size, width, depth, or shape or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or the protection of environmental features. And finally, the proposed use is appropriate for the site and the neighborhood. The changes to the proposed site plan include a reduction in lot coverage, as we mentioned before, no longer requiring relief. And in addition, the corrections were also made to open space that show an increase to 58.8% from the original 51%, where 50% is the minimum required. Planning also notes that the proposed use is appropriate for the site and neighborhood and will not be out of context with a variety of districts, building sizes, and commercial and residential uses. The proposed project will also not adversely affect the neighborhood or create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as the addition will be at the rear of the existing building and it will preserve the 2-story aesthetic and facade facing Winter Street. And finally, planning notes that while the site design includes an increase in the proposed paving and parking, the landscape plan proposes to add pervious pavers for outdoor parking areas. That concludes the planning presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Berman. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this? Anyone on Zoom? I don't see anybody in the chamber. Anyone on Zoom? All right, let's hear from the committee. Land Use Committee members. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed the reference to pervious pavers. You did too, Chair, I notice. Perhaps we could amend that to be pervious surface or pervious material, just to give everyone a little more flexibility.
To be consistent, we can, but if they would like to do pervious pavers, I'm sure that's fine, but we do have to work on that wording.
I'm sure that would be acceptable. I just want to say, I think we are very fortunate that this is in a historic district and that the Upper Falls Historic District Commission held as many meetings as it did on this. And I'm comfortable with this plan. This is, as I think we noted last time, Winter Street is a cut-through street between High and Chestnut, and it gets an unusually large amount of traffic. That's the nature of our town. So I'll be voting in favor of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Anybody else? Councillor Lucas and then Leary and then Downs.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lee, couple things. In your presentation and in the planning memo, it was said that the lot coverage was reduced from 27 to 23%, and it was due to a miscalculation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Forgive me, how could someone miscalculate something that bad?
I cannot speak to that. I didn't make the calculation. And I think all I can say to that is, I guess we're all human and mistakes happen.
Okay. The other thing is, can you bring up that slide that had the comparable FAR? We were doing this when we did 790 Watertown Street. It's one of those confusing things in our zoning, how we calculate FAR with 2 families and single family attached. Can you walk me through this again, please?
Yes, so it's really relating to the basement and the mass below first story. So here, as you can see, there's an asterisk here, and this notation, mass below grade 50% floor area. That's the main driver of the difference. In a single family attached dwelling, you have to be below grade 2/3 versus 50%. So it's a little bit easier to achieve the 50% level versus a single family attached, even though the structure is the same. Just the measurement points are different. And so the basement being a mass below first story only counts a certain amount in a two-family calculation. That's why it is a lower number compared to a single family attached.
Okay. And the nature of the site, is it flat? Is it slanted? Or, I mean, what do we have?
It slopes downwards from the street to the backyard.
Okay.
So it's
All right. And I'm sorry, you said something?
Nope.
No? Oh, okay. I thought you said something. What is the maximum FAR if it was a two-family?
0.5 with a 0.02 bonus.
Would you get the bonus? Because I presume it's an old lot.
What would happen is that the new lot requirements or new lot setback requirements are met, then the 0.02 bonus would apply.
Are you meeting those?
This is a special permit section. Let me see. The setbacks are. Yes, I can actually jump to the next table, which may be helpful here. So the required setbacks are here on the left. And so we have the front setbacks are existings. So we're going to keep it the same. And it looks like we are in compliance with the rear setback as well as the side setbacks here.
Okay. No, I had one more question. It was the whole pervious, impervious, and I don't know if you were watching the city council last night at 10 o'clock. I put a different item on second call, and it was about pervious, impervious. Can you just walk me through that again? What you're planning to do, or your client's planning to do? Excuse me.
Well, I could speak to the pervious materials. I think that may be the right word to use. I understand that there are some differences in costs related to different pervious materials, but if the committee is open to that, we would be definitely okay with the use of the materials word. And where my cursor is, the lighter grade shading in this landscape plan will be where the pervious materials will be installed.
Okay. So it's just that we received an email from engineering, and they said that permeable pavers are not considered a pervious surface by them, because I'm going off of memory, they need to be maintained several throughout the year, and no one does it, and they lose their perviousness, if you know what I mean. And it becomes impervious, and it doesn't do what they're intended to do. So again, this is a larger conversation, Chair, perhaps with
Yes,
engineering.
We know this. We know.
Yeah,
We're
I know.
going to take this up later. We
Yeah.
don't need to spend any more time on
So-
it tonight.
All set. Thank you.
We will be happy, for consistency's sake, and to give your client options to switch the wording in the condition in the council order to pervious paving material versus pavers. If they want to use pavers, there are many kinds of pavers set in different ways. It's up to them. We just would like it to be pervious. Councillor Leary.
Yes, I really like this project. I think it's really well done. It's thoughtful. You've minimized the need for relief. The retaining walls, those are on the sides of the driveway, right?
Yeah, there are existing retaining walls that we're going to be fixing. And
Yeah.
then as we step down, if you were looking at the property from the street on the left side, there are a couple of walls there that was going to be stepped down. So that's where the technical triggering of that retaining wall requirement comes
Yeah.
in.
So, and I appreciate the pervious materials. I'm
you.
surprised you're not watching us every night.
No comment.
We have our groupies. So, all set, Councillor Leary. Councillor Downs, you had your hand up next, but I wonder if you would like to be the wrap-up speaker, because Councillor Lobovitz would also like a turn. Would you like to go next, or would you like to be our finale?
I'll be the finale.
Thank you, because you may be making a motion about it. Councillor Lobovitz.
So there were two recalculations, is that correct? Lot coverage and
Open space.
open space, so just to be sure that the new calculation is accurate, I just wondered if planning had looked at that and made their own calculation to confirm your second calculation.
Ms. Berman, did you or Ms. Santos Rosso check these calculations this time?
Madam Chair, I can jump in. This is Katie Wewell from Planning. We rely on the materials from the professionals in verifying the statistics or the calculations for these dimensional standards. So unfortunately, we did, or the petitioners, contractor made a mistake here. We don't verify these. If something does look wrong, we may dig into it, but I think the delta here was, only a couple of percentage points. So in short, we do not verify.
The answer is no. Ms. Wewell, I may have differently interpreted Councillor Lobovit's question. I wasn't thinking it was about going out to the field to verify the calculations or the areas or the acreage. I was thinking it was maybe a math addition error. Councillor Lee, did you want to say something to that?
No, I was just really in terms of the comfort level for the council, should this be wrong and we actually did need a waiver, we would have to come back to you. So my message to you all and to VTP Associates is that it better be right.
So again, I just wanted to know if anybody other than the person who originally made the calculation and then made the recalculation, is anybody going to be checking that to make sure that the recalculation is accurate? Because, I mean, if you made a mistake the first time, you may have made a mistake the second time, and the first one was correct. I don't want to question the integrity. Don't misunderstand me. These are, as somebody said, it can be human error, but human error can be in both directions. So I'm just requesting that number be confirmed. I don't know, as part of the conditions. I'm not sure where to put that. Partly because I'm relatively new, but I do want that to happen. That's all I'm saying, because we would be voting this on certain premises that are now, in my mind, could be questioned. That's all I'm saying. So having another person from the outside looking at it and doing the calculation to reassure us that what we're voting on is actually what the actual construction will involve. Thank you.
We hear what you're getting at. Mr. Lee, what is your response to that, besides you really do hope it's correct this time?
No, so basically, my understanding is that the city departments do have to rely on the professional stamps and certification. So by way of example, when a project is complete, they require certifications from architects, engineers to confirm the as-built calculations. Those are typically done by the private consultants, not by the city. I think if it was a larger project where you have a peer reviewer who can do all those calculations, that's a different story. But most projects, by right or special permit, they will have to rely on private professionals.
So can somebody speak to my concern and what if it's appropriate to do what I'm asking to be done, or is that
We
sort
heard
of
from
an
planning.
unreasonable request?
Mr. Temple, do you have any input on this from, in a way, say, a legal perspective of how do we verify the numbers that are submitted and stamped by professionals who we count on? Do you have a
Unless
response to that?
planning or engineering department has professionals that can go out and do their own calculations, we have to rely on them. I mean, I don't really know what else to add to it. Do we have any reason to believe that the number is wrong right now?
Mr. Temple said, do we have any reason to believe the numbers are wrong right now? I believe the question that Counselor Lobovitz raised is that if they were wrong once before, that may lead some to question whether they could be wrong another time. Frankly, I would like us to move on from this point and not belabor it. I think we've heard all we have to hear about it tonight from planning and law. And we do now know that if there is any question between engineering and planning and perhaps even ISD, numbers can be checked. But again, I'm looking at the time and we still have another project to get to before we have Riverside, which is our big thing tonight. So if it's okay with you, Councilor Lobovitz, I don't think we're going to hear anything else to answer your question tonight. I don't. I'm going to mention that we have been joined in the chamber by Councilor Greenberg from Ward 1 and by Councilor Albright. And on Zoom, we've been joined by Councilor Gentile. Councilor Downs, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify one point that my colleague from Ward 4 made. Winter Street is 1 block long. It is not a cut through. I've walked it and I've gone back and examined it following his comments. The only way you would drive there if you had any sense at all is to take the Route 9 on-off ramp, which is 2-way and is wider and is faster. You would not take Winter Street or Summer Street to get between High and Chestnut. That being said, this is a great project. I'm going to move to close the public hearing and move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear anyone opposed. I heard everybody on that one. Okay, let's look at the findings and council order, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, let me know if everyone can see.
You can, thank you. And
I'll begin here. So we have the So we have the findings here, and under item 1, that the specific site is an appropriate location for the 3 proposed single-family attached dwellings as designed due to the location in a multi-residence 1 zone on an average-sized lot with a mixed-use neighborhood. The project also complies with some standards set forth for single-family attached dwellings, including building height, rear setbacks, lot coverage, required parking stalls per unit, and open space requirements. Item 2, that the proposed single-family attached dwellings as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood as the building is situated in a neighborhood consisting of a mix of uses that include 3-family and multifamily dwellings. Item 3, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the proposed single-family attached dwellings as designed because all required parking will be provided on site. Item 4, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the proposed single-family attached dwellings as designed. Item 5, that literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable due to the size of the lot and location of existing curb cuts relative to the existing dwelling, which will be maintained. Item 6, that the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property, such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining walls over 4 feet in height because of the site's slope. Item 7, the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public. And item 8, that the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a subject property to be reasonably utilized. Here we have the owner's contact information, the relief that will be granted. And finally, we have the standard conditions here that include the plan referencing condition. We have a standard O&M plan condition, standard pest control condition, construction management plan, the standard building permit condition, standard final inspection, certificate of occupancy condition, and standard landscaping plan. I'm sorry if I'm scrolling a little fast, but I'm happy to go back and go over any of these if you'd like to.
That was quick. My question, because I missed it, was did the term pervious pavers get replaced with pervious materials and all of that somewhere? And can you just point that out to us?
Sure. So I did not add a specific condition for pervious pavers because the pavers were outlined in the landscaping plan, which is included in the plan set up here. So if you would prefer to have something specified in the conditions, we can always add that in. But otherwise, it would be, they would be tied to the landscaping plan.
Thank you for that. I do actually think it would be better just to have the wording in there, considering its terminology we're wrestling with. It was already approved. They're willing to do it. Could we just add in there? We'll leave that to you. We don't need to see it tonight that, that they agree to use pervious paving material.
Understood. So you'd like the phrase to be pervious paving material, just to be clear.
Pervious materials for paved areas, whatever. I trust,
Okay.
we're all going to be working on this together between land use and planning. So let's start to work on some wording that we'll use consistently. But pervious and material should be in there and not pavers.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this. Ms. Holden.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs. I think you're muted.
Enthusiastically, aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo,
Aye.
8-0. Motion is approved.
There we go. That's a solid vote tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Our last of the smaller items is number 277-25, which is a request to extend the non-conforming rear setback at 30 Kingsbury Road. Ms. Berman, I'm going to ask you to go first on this one, if you don't mind.
Sure, not a problem, Madam Chair.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to go ahead and share my screen one more time. Okay, let me know if anyone can't see my screen.
We can see it.
All right, great. So again, Sandra Berman, Senior Planner for the City of Newton, and I'm going to present the planning presentation for petition 277-25 for 30 Kingsbury Road, which is a request for special permit site plan approval to construct a mudroom addition to connect an existing detached garage to the primary dwelling, which further extends the non-conforming rear setback. As you'll see here from the aerial map, the subject property is a 28,430 square foot oversized corner lot located in a single residence 1 district in Chestnut Hill, just south of Hammond Street to the north. The property is currently improved with a single family dwelling constructed in 1915 and a 1.5-story two-car detached garage in the rear. Abutting properties within the single residence 1 district consist of single-family residential uses on similarly sized lots. The petitioner is seeking relief to construct a 109 square foot mudroom addition that connects the existing detached garage to the primary dwelling, and this further extends the non-conforming rear setback to 5.1 feet from the existing 12.2 feet, where 25 feet is the minimum required. And here the criteria considered is that the proposed reduction of the non-conforming rear setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming rear setback is to the neighborhood. And some items to consider from the planning department: that the proposed 1-story 109-foot square addition is 14.1 feet from the rear setback, and because it connects the primary dwelling to the existing detached garage, the garage and the dwelling become one structure, and the garage's existing 5.1-foot rear setback requires relief to further extend the non-conforming rear setback from the 12.2-foot setback to 5.1. Planning notes that the mudroom addition is not easily visible from the street, as it is screened by both the primary dwelling and a 1.5-story two-car garage that faces the western side of the property along Kingsbury Road. Other as-of-right modifications included in this project is the removal of an existing in-ground pool, deck, and greenhouse, and the addition of a larger deck and patio, but this still results in an overall reduced FAR of 0.25 from the existing 0.26 and lot coverage of 10.8% from the existing 11.6. Planning also notes that the proposed deck has a rear setback of 12.6 feet with 170 square feet of deck within the 25-foot rear setback. However, the de minimis provisions of the city zoning ordinance allow for up to 200 square feet of deck to be located within the setback as of right. Planning notes that the proposed construction does not render the non-conforming setback more detrimental than the existing rear setback. And that concludes the planning presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. Is there someone here representing the petitioner or the petitioner and the owner wanting to speak to this? Andrew Reck.
Yes, hi, thank you. I don't think I can say anything better than Sandra just recapped everything. And it's a slightly different scale from the previous things you've heard tonight. But thank you for hearing our project. My name is Andrew Reck from Oak Hill Architects, and I have Lee Yang with us as well. Our clients are Lizzie Bildner and Alex Burns. I just wanted to note that for some reason on the agenda, the former owners were listed. All the other documentation seems to be correct, but I just wanted to mention that.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Could you say that again? On the agenda, what?
On the agenda items, the previous owners are listed.
Oh, the owners
the
are not
applicants.
Kenneth and Barbara Burns?
Correct.
Okay,
But it is correct on all of the other documentation.
thank you.
Sure. And I do have drawings that I'm happy to run through. I'm not sure if you'd like me to or not. It's entirely up to you.
We don't need to see floor plans, for instance, but if there is a site plan that shows what you're proposing, the changes and where this connection, mudroom garage connecting would be, that might be helpful for us to look at that.
Sure. So if I may share my screen.
Yes,
Okay. Can everyone see this?
not yet. There we go.
Okay, great. So this is 30 Kingsbury Road. It's a corner lot, as mentioned, and it's largely conforming. The real area where it's not conforming is the north side of the lot, which in this case is the rear setback. So here's the driveway. There's an existing 2-car garage, an L-shaped main dwelling, and this is currently open space in between. And on the proposed plan, I'll zoom in here a little bit. This is where the addition is being proposed. It's 109 square feet. It's 1 story. It's sandwiched between the garage and the house. And so it really, as mentioned, is not visible from the road. And if it's helpful, I can show some exterior elevations.
I'm not
So-
sure if to me, this looks quite self-explanatory.
Okay,
Members of the committee
okay,
like to see
fine,
more
fine,
plans, or
fine.
is this adequate for the nature of what's going on here? This is quite straightforward, I believe.
Yeah.
But thank you for offering, and if somebody wants to ask for it, they will.
Of course.
Thank you. Are you all done, Mr. Reck, or do you have a little bit more, anything more to say?
No, only if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Great, we appreciate that. Thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to speak to this? Any nearby neighbors or abutters who have a comment or two? Otherwise, let's get to it in committee. Ward 7, yes, President Laredo.
Just a quick question. The rear setback was 12 feet. It's now technically going to be 5. What's on the other side of the setback? What's the property there?
Oh, the other side of the setback, there's an ADU that was recently built, and the actual main dwelling is quite a bit further away from that. But as I understand it, the ADU is 12.5 feet from the property line, which is their side setback.
I'm sorry, it's an ADU?
An additional dwelling unit, sorry.
Of the abutters.
Of the abutters.
Of the abutters, okay, got it. And have you talked to those abutters?
I have not personally. I just know this because our engineer also did the survey for when that
Did
additional dwelling unit was built.
did anyone talk to those abutters?
I'm not sure whether my clients have or not.
Are they on this call? Are they here? Are they present on Zoom tonight to answer that question?
Oh, my clients, no. But certainly, it was advertised and the signs were posted.
No, I understand that. Look, I think this is fine. I'm not going to look to hold this up. they would have received notice that they were direct abutters behind. Am I correct about that, Ms. Holden?
Yes.
Okay, so they would have received notice, and I would just, as a piece of friendly advice going forward, if you're doing another special permit in the future here, we urge folks to talk to the immediate abutters just to let them know what they're doing. It's often very helpful. It makes this process go much smoother. That's kind of an expectation here. I also would have hoped, I don't know if anyone did, that you talked to the ward counselor about the project. That would have been Lyle Baker. But again, I'm not looking to hold this project up. I think it's just fine. That's just a kind of a process piece for going forward if you're back here before us again. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Any other questions or comments from the committee? If not, President Laredo, would you like to make a motion or two?
I'll move to close the public hearing and I'll move approval.
Thank you so much. Let's vote in favor of closing the public hearing. In favor, please say aye.
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 That's unanimous. All right, let's look at what are probably going to be very simple findings and conditions.
Hope so. All right, let me know if you cannot see my screen. But here we have the draft order for 30 Kingsbury Road. And we have here the findings that the proposed extension of the non-conforming rear setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming rear setback is to the neighborhood, as the proposed mudroom structure is subordinate to the primary dwelling. The proposed connection renders the existing detached garage as attached to the primary dwelling, subjecting the overall structure to stricter setbacks than previously applicable. And we have here, I just want to confirm that we have the right homeowners here, Alex Burns and Lizzie Bildner.
Mr. Reck, is that accurate?
That's accurate. Yes.
Excellent. And as we move through, we have the special permit relief. We have the zoning that single residence 1. And then we have our standard conditions, which include the plan referencing conditions right here, standing building permit conditions, and then finally the standard final inspection and certificate of occupancy conditions. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Happy to pull this back up if anyone has any other questions.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up. I think we can go ahead and vote on this.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo,
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wish your owners luck. Thank you, Mr. Reck.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the last item, which is really two items, but we bring them up at the same time because they're connected. The first one is around amending sections of the zoning ordinance. It's item number 238-25, a request to rezone 399 Grove Street to mixed use 3 and to amend sections of the mixed use 3 transit-oriented development district of the Newton zoning ordinance. Along with that, we are taking up the special permit request, which is number 239-25, request to construct a mixed-use development consisting of 750 residential units, mixed commercial parking and open space at 355, 399, and 0 Grove Street. This is the second time that this project is before us. I think we're going to have an update from the petitioner, from the development team, and from some of the consultants. So go ahead and welcome Mr. Bookbinder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, other counselors in attendance. For the record, Stephen Bookbinder, an attorney with the law firm of Schlesinger and Bookbinder, offices at 1200 Walnut Street in Newton Highlands. I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioner. As you know, we last met in this chamber on September 16th. And since that time, we have submitted 4 separate peer review responses and have received follow-up memos from each peer reviewer. We've also submitted responses to questions raised by members of the committee and other counselors at that time. I do want to note, Madam Chair, that the planning department and the peer review team have been extraordinarily cooperative. They have turned things around very quickly. I'm also very appreciative to all of you for accommodating us with a hearing tonight and for starting early to allow us some time. It's very much appreciated. It is noticed. So this evening, we're going to address a number of issues raised during the last hearing, specifically, and not necessarily in this order, but parking, TDM, retail options, and site and building design changes, particularly with regard to building 2-3. We believe that stormwater has been adequately addressed at this point. Mr. Holworth is on virtually, however, if there are any questions for him. And we believe that we're very close on both fiscal and transportation. I also want to note that Mr. Korf has determined that he would like to maintain the option to include elderly housing with services in Building 1. Now, we've already asked for a text amendment that would permit that use by special permit. So depending on your feedback this evening, we may seek to amend our application to make the request for elderly housing with services. I believe I can work out the details with the city clerk and with Mr. Temple. And this would give him the ability to either stick with the multifamily residential or go the elderly housing with services just in Building 1. And it would obviate the need for him to come back at a later date for an amendment, which I think we'd all like to avoid. The elderly housing with services would trigger some design changes to Building 1, mostly on the ground floor and the upper floor. And we'd have to do updates on traffic, fiscal, and inclusionary housing, but we think those would be fairly minor, and we'll be fully prepared to discuss those on October 21st. So with that, I want to turn things over to Jesse Bearcan, who's going to discuss retail issues with you. Thank you.
Thank you. While Mr. Bearcan comes to the microphone, I'd like to welcome Councillor Krinsman, who has joined us on Zoom. He's from this ward, Ward 4. Yes, President Laredo.
Can I just ask a process question of the chair?
Yes, sir.
So Attorney Bookbinder, if you're going to seek to amend your application, when would you do that and what effect does that have on this process?
Sure, and I'd ask Mr. Temple to correctly, but we've actually done this before. I would look to do it later this week, depending on the feedback tonight. And I think all that's involved, we would file through the portal to request that use by special permit. We would then, I believe, have to advertise again for that use, which we would do, and we would pay for that advertisement.
So just so I understand process, because I'm trying to think this through, you'd have to re-advertise, come back before us with an amended re-advertised proposal. We would continue this hearing. I take it we don't have to start again.
No, I think that's right. I think Mr. Temple, I believe, is on. I think
We
Joe.
don't have, you know what, we don't have to deal with this right now, but I would like a very clear understanding of what you think the process is going to look like and when you think it would come to the full city council. And that I will need some guidance on at a later
Sure.
date. Thank
I'm
you.
very glad you asked that question. Actually, Councillor President Laredo, I'm also thinking about if that changes the timeline of things, because we're on a very tight schedule to get this done if we're going to get it done this term. So when you add in 2 weeks of notice, I don't think we need to add another meeting. We've already added an extra meeting to what we originally planned for Riverside. So let's hope we can proceed, but we'll talk more with
Sure,
the law department.
Very, very fair question. Let me just say two quick things. The changes to the building, very, very minimal. And I think we can get this all accomplished within our current timeframe. However, and I haven't asked Mr. Korf about this, but I'm going to go out on a limb. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize the big picture. I think we can get it done, but if it turns out to be a problem, we still want to get the main piece of the project approved.
Yes, follow up, and then we'll let them do their
Sorry,
presentation.
so just so I'm clear, the proposal is to allow you to provide some kind of elderly housing, essentially.
Correct.
Which in turn requires a certain different numbers of vehicles for employees and so forth, right?
Correct.
And what you're also saying is if you can't do it this term, you want to get what you have in front of us through, and presumably you'd come back with an amendment to the special permit sometime next term. Is that the theory?
That's correct, Mr. Laredo.
Okay, thank you.
I can imagine there would be a trade-off. You're talking only about elderly plus services in building 1, in one building, and there would probably be some shift in parking calculation because that particular population may need less cars themselves because they won't be driving, but they will have service staff. So we'll have to look forward to that. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Sorry, you've been cut off now twice.
No, I didn't get started, so it wasn't cut off.
But you were standing there ready to go.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Good evening, counselors, those online, city staff. My name is Jesse Barracon. I am the president and founder of a small but mighty Boston-based retail development and advisory business. We work on large and some small scale mixed-use projects, very much focused in Greater Boston. Most relevant to this conversation, we've worked with the Mark development team on various projects, most notably Trio at the intersection of Washington and Walnut. Really proud of the execution on that project. There's some parallels to what we did there to the way we're looking at Riverside. And then lastly, I'm a Newton resident. So I think my motivation for executing on this project on behalf of the community and the city is, I wouldn't say extraordinary, but extra important. So I'm going to be brief tonight. And, I know for many of you, retail is something that you're very interested in as it relates to Riverside and our plans. So I'm going to walk through just kind of some of the way really we've been thinking about the retail for the project, some comps, which I know people love talking about, what kind of retail, our timeline for execution, and then generally and holistically how we've been thinking about all of this. And I think as you heard from my colleague Rob at the last time you were all together, retail for us is very much about the larger, our larger pursuit to create an active, vibrant place. And I think that goes beyond just retail. It's how do we think about interconnectivity with the public realm? How do we think about the relationship between our retail boxes and some of the green spaces we're creating, about transit, all the things that we know are needed to make sure this project is successful. I would also say in doing this, one thing that we cannot forget is taking a tenant-first approach. And what I mean by that, and I'll get into it, is we need to understand this project through the lens of the entrepreneurs and the makers and the small businesses that will occupy these spaces. If we don't do that, we're doing a disservice to the project and the community. And then lastly, as part of doing that, I mentioned thinking about more than just traditional retail, but also how do we design, how do we build, how do we think about these spaces so they're flexible? They can be broken down to support a range of different uses and sizes and operators, et cetera. So as a quick refresher, I think this plan you saw for the first time last time our team was in front of you. Most notable is that the addition of a small retail box on the central green. I think this is very reflective of the way in which you all and we are thinking about the project, which is we should be locating our retail in locations that activate this site, that activate the public realm, that activate the sidewalks. Duly, we've thought about the retail as lining the main pedestrian vehicular spine in the middle of the project. And of course, there is certainly a bias towards the, in plan eastern third of the site where we're going to have the most pedestrian activity adjacent to the transit node, to the MBTA. This image also does a good job at showing all those places where we expect there to be spill out from the retail establishments. So for this conversation, I just wanted to pull out some things that I find and my team finds inspirational, and how they relate to the planning exercise and the execution exercise in front of us. And the first one is, you probably think it's a little bit curious how we have a picture of the senior center at the corner of Highland and Walnut, but this is actually a great example of how we can use, how we can deploy uses that are not traditional retail in a way that activate our streets, that provide community value. This building will open soon. As a Newtonville resident, we expect this to be a great contributor to street life and to civic life. And, as I'll talk about quickly in the slide that follows, a use that we've been thinking about here that is in a similar vein would be daycare or early education, right? That is not a traditional retail use, but huge amenity to the community, to those living here, to commuters, et cetera. And then on the bottom, there are a couple of pictures, actually 3 pictures of some storefronts from Newtonville. I think what's inspirational to me about these are just the rhythm, for example, of the storefronts that are on Walnut. You've got a dog groomer, you've got personal training, you've got a salon. These are personal and neighborhood services that particularly in Building 6, we see as having a real role here. And of course, we tried to translate some of this at Trio. New York Bagel Factory is a great example on the far right. This is a picture of Saturday when I was down there, just showing what spill out can do to activate a project. And then lastly, two other things I'd pull out. The first one is you've heard conversations about a full service restaurant. This is not a traditional or what I would call kind of an A+ retail location. And I say that simply because we are not currently there's nothing there or not much there. And even when this development is done, we are not surrounded at all sides by a ton of density. And that's okay. We think this is scaled appropriately from a retail perspective, but we just have to be realistic about what this means. And a great comp when I bring this up, of a project we worked on is Branchline Restaurant at the historic Arsenal in Watertown. It's a full serve restaurant at a project that I don't think folks would look at and say this is traditionally an A+ retail location, but that restaurant has worked really well, largely because of the integrity and the ability of the operators who own it and operate it. And then lastly on this slide, and I promise I'm getting there, there's been a lot of conversation about, or some conversation, I should say, and Robert updated me, and we've had conversations about some community desires for a food co-op. As a resident, I believe we should have a food co-op in Newton. As somebody who spends all my days full-time working on retail real estate, I do not actually think this is the right place for a food co-op. I think if we were to get together as a community and those who really care deeply about this, what we have learned from our work in this space is that so often you see food co-ops that are going to spaces that are, I would say, not locations that have robust pedestrian activity, and you're just not setting up these organizations for success. If I was to do it, I would love to put a food co-op in Newton Center, in Newtonville, and Highlands. And our concern here, again, goes back to just viability, right? If we're going to put in the effort to do this, where are we going to put it? And our approach on all of this work is we need to put entrepreneurs, nonprofits, organizations, and retail locations where we believe they can be most successful. And success in retail requires really, really robust foot traffic and energy. And we'll have some of that here. But again, I don't think this is the right location for it. Happy to get into it further with folks who I know care deeply about this use, myself included. So really quickly, in plan, to kind of pull all this together, when we think about the sort of uses that we've been contemplating for the site and where they go, I mentioned daycare and early childhood education, potentially occupying a space up here. The Newtonville comp was thinking about the ways in which we could break up Building 6 to house a variety of personal service, neighborhood service, even things like studio fitness. They're destinations. They're huge amenities for residents and commuters. And then lastly, how do we think about food and beverage, whether it's at this corner, it would be a great bakery or cafe, or this corner here for a full serve restaurant. And again, to reiterate where I started, I think really important to us to kind of create spaces where we can support a small format, 700 square foot personal service, and we can stretch even bigger for a full service restaurant and have a diversity of size spaces all occupying kind of our main pedestrian and vehicular zone on the site. And then lastly, how are we going to do this? And just going back to kind of where I started about being realistic, one of the challenges that we have in our work all the time, and I would just share one of the challenges that I generally have is on projects like this, we are planning for a world that is 3-4 years away from now. And things are moving really fast in retail real estate. The conversations we are having today with restaurateurs and yoga instructors and artists about what it takes to run their businesses viably, it is really challenging. I think it is then on us over the years ahead to design and engineer spaces and prepare spaces that are suitable for a range of different operators, regardless of where the market goes, to move through a construction and leasing process expeditiously and end up at a place where I hope we all get, which is a completed project. So the retail is opening contemporaneously with all these great new housing units. And we feel really good about this flow. But again, our caution is always, let's take a tenant first approach. Let's understand we've got some time to go. Let's do right by, let's do right for ourselves and for the community in the way in which we're thinking about the range of uses, being really flexible, designing it right, building it right, all that great stuff. So really excited about this project, to be in this team. And, with that, I think we'll move on from retail And I think Elizabeth is going to talk to us about parking, correct? Yeah, great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've seen some of you in person, but it's good to be here again. I'm Elizabeth Tibbetts-Nutt. I'm the Director of Development for 128 Business Council. We've been involved in this project in one way or another since late 2018. I've personally done the parking analysis for many different iterations. I'm super excited to hopefully see this actually get built. I think it's a great project. Every version of it's been a great project, but I'm particularly excited about this one. At every stage of the parking analysis, our goal has really been to do a deep dive on national industry standards and then align those data sets with the particularness of Riverside, which compared to the national landscape is really forward thinking. It's a TOD. It's been mixed use at every stage. Most of the national industry standards assume a development style that's still frankly stuck in the 70s. This project is not. So we want to make sure that in our analysis takes in all that data, but then retrofits it for this usage. Just to set out to make sure we're all thinking about the same thing before I get into the actual analytical portion. Once everything is constructed, the eventual planned conditions will be to have a 286 space MBTA only surface lot. There'll be an 88 space residential only lot adjoining buildings 2 and 3, 43 spaces of on-site surface parking, and then a 980 space shared use garage. And that shared use garage is really the focus of our analysis because we want to make sure that we right size it. It's not too big, it's not too small, and it can accommodate all of those different shared usages. From the outset, we have to make sure to honor the commitments that have been negotiated with the MBTA. At this point, where we're at is that we have promised them 650 spaces at peak periods. That's an important commitment to make sure that we are accommodating. In reality, on the average day, the actual peak need is closer to 350 spaces, but we do know that Riverside as a park and ride station does serve a lot of special events. So we want to make sure that we're not cutting it too close for that. So we're going to hit those 650 spaces with, again, that 286 space MBTA only surface lot, and then 229 spaces that can be committed to MBTA use 24/7 in the shared garage, and then 135 spaces that'll be committed to MBTA between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So that's basically flipping usage with residential use. We have, or will be, I'm not sure if it's been submitted yet, but be submitting the full detailed analysis, which I'm not going to bore all of you with all the charts. This is not the right venue for that. Those will be provided to planning and the peer reviewers, but the basic to hit the highlights, we built out hour by hour models for all users, MBTA riders, residents, retail restaurant visitors. Again, this combines national industry standards with site-specific data. The MBTA analysis in particular reflects sort of a negotiation between those commitments and the observed patterns that we've been studying since 2018, which means that basically since 2018, we've been going out off and on in person and doing hour by hour counts to make sure that we know how people are flowing in and out of that garage. Of that lot, which will eventually be flowing into the garage. Residential demand assumes a 1-to-1 ratio. We've added in the garage an extra 10% buffer for user movement because we know that there will be some user inefficiency with having 2 different garages that residents could be moving between. Retail restaurant demand blends 3 different ITE categories to better match specifically Riverside. Again, I won't bore you with the details of that. We have provided it to planning, but basically the idea is that we want to make sure that even though retail restaurant is the smallest percentage of the parking use, we still get it right? It's a gesture towards conscientiousness. The combined peak need after all of this is about 950 spaces for that garage. It's already a little bit misleading since on-site surface parking will actually absorb some of the commercial and visitor demand, so that gives the garage a little bit of extra flexibility. So what you are looking at here And it looks like some of the text you can't quite see in the projection, so I'll translate it for you. But at the very bottom in that dark blue, you see the MBTA non-special event actual demand. Most of the demand on a normal day will be absorbed by the surface lot. There will be some overflow into the garage. At the top in the lighter blue, you'll see the commitment, right? We need to reserve those spaces for those 650 committed spaces, but on the average day, a lot of those won't actually be being used by MBTA users. In yellow, you see the residential demand. In orange, you'll see that residential buffer I described. Retail restaurant is actually such a small portion that it's hard to see, but it's the green squeezed there in the middle. And then all of this is against a background of, 980 shared use spaces in the garage, yes, but also again, those surface spaces and the additional buffer for moving back and forth between this garage and the building 2-3 garage. Okay, so now we need to talk about the hard part, which is the 18-month construction period parking management. So during those 18 months before the garage is built, obviously the construction of the whole development takes a lot longer than 18 months, but 18 months here, I'm talking about the construction of the shared use garage. During that period, we have 18 months that we have to figure out how to manage demand, specifically just for MBTA users. And at the end of that, we get a lifetime of housing benefits. So the project's going to provide 286 public spaces during that period, and an additional, this actually has a typo, has an additional 70 spaces specifically dedicated to MBTA employees and contractor staging. If you drive by Riverside now, you'll see a lot of cars sort of, if you look in the shadier portions, that kind of gives the lot a sense of excess fullness. Right now, we know that the MBTA is already using the lot for its own employees and for its own staging purposes because they know there's a lot of extra surplus. We know that that won't go away right away. Some of that doesn't actually have anything to do with Riverside, so there's going to be a little bit of behavior management, right, for the MBTA folks that don't actually need to be parking at Riverside. But during construction, they will need some of their own parking, so we're going to make sure that there's 70 spaces for that purpose. It's important to separate those two usages, right, for safety, and also just to make sure that those MBTA employees and contractors aren't sort of interfering with public circulation. Okay, so special event demand during construction. We, in detail, spent way too much time reviewing the most recent 14 months of Riverside parking transactions provided by the MBTA. We looked really closely at all of the days with more than 286 transactions. This is already overcautious because we know that transactions don't actually equal cars parked at the same time on the lot, right? Transactions just mean at some point during the day, someone paid to come there. We don't know if all of those people are there at the same time. We know from our own data analysis, actually, that most of the time they're not, especially on high usage days. This was validated by a really deep dive we did back in 2022 to 2023. Internally, we did an internal study that we shared with the MBTA that they were satisfied with, where we compared our own in-person and camera-based counts to their transaction data and actually built a model that I'm pretty nerdily proud of, where we can actually project the real world demand meaning like the hour by hour demand curve from their pay by phone transactions. So we can take a look at their pay by phone transactions and estimate with a pretty high level of accuracy how many cars that actually means would be parked at 8 a.m. versus 3 p.m. On special event days, we know that this demand splits into two separate curves: regular users versus event users. So this particular example that you see up here on the screen was an unusually high usage day back on Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, when the Red Sox were playing the New York Yankees. They were playing a little better than they're playing right now. It was in the final game of a 2-game series at 7 p.m. There were 536 transactions split between those regular users and the special event users, but the most cars that were parked simultaneously were 381 because they're coming and going at different times. We conducted spot checks on this model, actually with a recent Yankees game a few days back, and a few weeks back, and the results were consistent. However, we do know that 381 cars is still more than 286, right? So we went back and analyzed that whole data set with pay by phone transactions, and we looked at any day that approached or exceeded the mid-construction size of the lot. So doing so confirmed that ample surplus capacity already exists at the nearby Woodland lot, which has 534 spaces that are being vastly underutilized. There's more than enough to cover this delta. So what you see up here is a selection of days just taken from August 2025, just the most recent collection of days like this. And basically what this is showing you is that even if we took all of the folks who were already parked at Woodland and we had sent over all of the potential overflow of folks who might not have fit at Riverside under construction conditions, all of those orange bars on the far right is all the extra parking that is still left at Woodland, right? This is a vastly underutilized lot. So, you know, and again, these are transaction numbers. So this is already, there's about extra, conservatism built into this because this is transaction numbers, not actual demand. So basically what we're taking from this data is that the solution isn't building more asphalt at Riverside, it's using the existing infrastructure smarter. To make sure that we can do this, we'll be installing highway signage that can announce current capacity that will be visible from the highway. So potential MBTA users won't actually even need to exit and uselessly circle the lot. They'll know while they're still there that they need to continue on. The MBTA also has further channels for messaging across social media and their website, which we'll be working with to make sure that they're utilizing. So the shared use garage parking management. Once that garage is built, we will have already pressure tested special event days. And again, once the garage is built, that's the same biggest challenge that we need to worry about. The new garage, again, guarantees 650 spaces during peak periods for MBTA users. If we've done it already with 286, we can certainly do it with 650. Going back to that 14-month data set that I mentioned before, we know that after construction, there'll only be about 5 event days a year where we might need some overflow management. To my mind, and hopefully also to yours, it doesn't make a lot of sense to vastly overbuild a garage for 5 days a year, especially once we'll already have the communication practices in place for directing some of that usage towards Woodland. So hopefully once open, the main focus will be operations, not capacity, right? It'll be making sure it'll be, on the building management company to make sure that those special event parkers don't disrupt project residents, which obviously they'll be highly motivated to do. So that concludes the parking portion. I was going to turn toward TDM if there aren't any questions ahead of that. Yeah. Great. So again, we've been along the way for a few different iterations of this project. Before I talk about TDM, I want to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Transportation demand management is basically the industry practices associated with trying to make sure that people have every opportunity possible to get out of their single occupancy vehicles. This is usually done through a coordination of infrastructure, information, and incentives. In the case of the Riverside project, the infrastructure is already heavily in place. In most projects that we work with, that information and incentives needs to be extremely robust and aggressive, and it's really a push uphill, right? Because the infrastructure around everyone is already encouraging them to get into their cars. And so you have to make those incentives really, really, really enticing to get people to put in the extra effort and possibly like dirt and sweat and extra hours to actually be willing to take a trip, not in their single occupancy vehicle. In the case of Riverside, one of the reasons I love this project, right, is that it already exceeds the standards, our industry standards for TDM in terms of it's a, mixed use development. The industry standard is that when you leave where you live, you don't have more than a quarter mile to walk to get to transit. In this case, they don't even fully have to leave where they live, right? Those active ground floor uses that you just heard about are really key, right? It means that you're taking away reasons for people to have to feel like they're commuting at all. And that compact grid with open space connections is really key for making people feel comfortable to do that walking around. Parking management is an essential part of TDM. The biggest part of that is getting folks to unbundle residential parking, which this project has happily agreed to do from the outset, with the exclusion of the inclusionary units. Making sure that the parking supply is right-sized, which we just talked about in detail, right, is also really important. Not having a sense of just an abundance and sea of parking, which then physically gets in the way of people's ability to walk, is also really important. Bike and pedestrian facilities will be, copious. There are a lot of planned upgrades to streetscape and crosswalk infrastructure. There'll be secure covered bike parking actually at a 1-to-1 ratio with the number of residential units, in addition to sidewalk level racks for guests and retail users, and in addition to an on-site public repair station, which is awesome. I just used one of those on Sunday and it made me very happy. Support for electric vehicles is actually remarkably thoughtful. There'll be EV charging for 10% of the non-MBTA spaces, and another 10% of those spaces will be EV ready. There'll be preferential EV parking near those chargers. Sorry, actually click. This is something that often gets overlooked, but is really important for making the flow of users in and out of the chargers low stress and efficient. You can ask anybody who has an electric vehicle. They often have to spend a lot of time circling their car around, waiting for their turn, and then finding someone to put it in the meantime. That they won't have to do that here. And then having the chargers distributed across garage levels, again, is one of the things that often gets overlooked. People like to build them all. They like the optics of building them all immediately where people will see them, right? But in reality, if you want those spaces to be accessible to all users, especially anybody who has any mobility issues, you need them to be close to where everyone might be trying to get, exit. So having them on all floors is important. The project will be providing a 50% reimbursement on MBTA Link Pass or monthly bus passes for the first 2 years of occupancy. At the city's request, they'll be contributing to a city bike share with a location to be identified on site. And vendor dependent, they're open to having car share parking spaces dedicated, but again, that's vendor dependent. Signage is a really essential element that often gets underdeveloped. I'm excited this project is not planning to do that, having wayfinding so that folks actually have the practical confidence and don't default to their cars just because they're not sure how to get from point A to point B. And then there'll also be real-time transit info in all the residential lobbies. So that'll show MBTA Green Line, MBTA bus lines, any regional services with available compatible AVL data. And then finally, that was all infrastructure. You need the people to support that infrastructure. So the project has committed to joining a transportation management association. They'll have an on-site TDM coordinator either hired or just identified. So there's actually a point person for that TMA to interface with. That will include making sure that all new residents and employees receive thorough welcome packets to make sure that they know what all their transportation options are and in participating in whatever promotions the TMA is doing. And then finally, they've agreed to a pre-occupancy site inspection by city staff. And now I think I'm going to be turning over to Randy Hart. Yeah. Randy Hart, who's I think appearing virtually.
Good evening, everyone. Randy Hart, principal with VHB. We're the transportation consultants on the project. As Mr. Bookbinder has already said, we've been working feverishly with the city and the peer consultant to resolve all questions and comments that have been provided to us. We received an updated version of comments late last week, and we're currently working through them, and we'll be submitting to the city in the very near future. In the beginning, there were 22 comments or questions. 16 of the 22 have been completely satisfied, and we're working to satisfy the remaining 6. I'll give you a sense of what you'll see in the next couple of days. Question or comment 14 by Green asked that we provide a signage plan for short-term pickup and drop-off parking areas. That is in the works at the moment, and you'll be seeing that in the very near future. So Green, under comment 16, they recommend that other traffic calming measures such as raised intersections, raised crossings, chicanes, pinch points, etc., be considered, and we are considering such treatments on Main Street, and we'll be submitting a revised version of the plan that incorporates some of those things in the very near future.
Randy, do you think we should be looking at something more than just a screen that says bike parking, internal circulation?
Yeah, I mean, I could share my screen with you if you like. I mean, I've got the letter up from Green, if that would be helpful.
We just weren't sure if we were missing a visual presentation.
No,
No,
it's such a short presentation that it wasn't worth putting slides together, honestly.
Okay. That's fine. Just a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next comment is 17. Please share wayfinding signage. And as Elizabeth just said, we are preparing a wayfinding signage package plan. So that'll be part of the submittal that you'll see in the next several days. Under comment 18, the Green response is, given the volume of traffic on the road, the narrowness of the roadway, and the volume of bikers, pedestrians that are expected to access the site via MBTA station, we would like to see protected bicycle access to the MBTA station. So we took that comment very seriously, and the proponent's gone back and evaluated the situation. And what we're proposing to do to accommodate that is essentially widen the existing sidewalk between Grove Street and the train trestle along Grove Street to convert it to a 10-foot multi-use path. And by doing so, it allows direct access into the station at the train trestle area, the existing access that exists there today. So that's new to the plan, and you'll see that as part of our response. Under comment 19, they asked again for a signing plan when available for review, and that's under the works, and you'll see that very shortly. And then the final comment, I think, oh no, 2 more, sorry. Comment 21, they say areas around buildings 2 and 3 and building 4 show fire truck movements have an overhang into the sidewalk area. Please confirm that there's no vertical obstructions in the areas of these overhangs. And we've modified the plan to minimize overhang and avoid any vertical obstruction. So that'll be part of the submittal. And the final comment is just 22, and it's asking for the TDM plan, which I think has already been submitted under separate heading. So that's kind of where we are. That's all that's outstanding from a transportation perspective. We're very close to, I think, wrapping that up, and we look forward to submitting to the city in the next several days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. You're a fast talker. And I don't mean sleazy, I mean quick.
Trying to move it along.
I would like to also welcome Councillor Lipoff from Ward 8, who's joined us on Zoom. I see someone new at the podium.
Yes, Rob Adams. I'm a principal landscape architect at Halverson Design. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to cover a series of topics. All of them, I think, are responses to comments or questions we had last week, 2 weeks ago, and or responses to some of the new peer review comments that we received just a few days ago. First, we'll talk about bike parking. Next, we'll kind of delve into some more detail about the connections to the west and the south, our extended linkages to the community, talk a little bit about the character of the open space, and then I'll turn it over to Michael, who will talk about the architecture improvements evolution. So this first slide, while there's a lot on here, there's one very critical piece that Randy alluded to, and that is the shared use path that connects where we previously terminated at our driveway entrance off Grove Street. We have now extended those improvements to, Thank you, Steve. To extend where we previously stopped at our driveway entrance all the way down to what exists as a current access point at the MBTA. So we have room within the right-of-way to provide a 10-foot wide shared use path to make that linkage that has been requested both by the peer review, but I think also some counselors.
Rob, can you use the pointer you have there to show that path?
Yes, I am. I have. I was. I will.
Not showing
continue.
on my
So,
little
yep,
screen.
right there.
Oh, okay. It's the dash line.
Excellent.
That doesn't translate to my screen.
Sorry. As well as obviously providing shared use, sharrows within the roadway if bicyclists see fit to use that existing entrance as well. So these next two sets of slides, there's a lot of content, and so bear with me. I'll go through them very quickly, but we wanted to give a little bit more life to these connections, both the connection from, I'll say, the interstate overpass to the community center to the south along Grove Street. And then the next set of slides, you'll see the connection from our main street to the MWRA along kind of the rec road corridor as it's been termed. So you'll see some before and after slides. This is existing, what we showed last time, right? We're providing those two roundabouts. None of this has changed. The pedestrian link, which has been talked about, and I think has been considered a great benefit of this project, from that first roundabout to the northern roundabout all the way to the community center, we wanted to provide a little bit more life as to what that would look like, right? This is not construction documents. We're not going to build this tomorrow, but I think this is really a test fit that this will work and what the conditions are. You'll notice this is just north of the interstate overpass, existing conditions. And so we're proposing a 10-foot wide dedicated cycle track and a 5-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk up to the bridge. At the bridge, right, the existing road bed, we are going to reallocate that existing road to continue that 10-foot dedicated cycle track and the existing sidewalk that exists on a raised condition. Once we get past the bridge, right, this is the existing conditions headed south. We will continue the 10-foot cycle track and the 5-ish foot sidewalk, and that will continue until approximately this point where we literally run out of right-of-way room to provide a wider cycle track. So at this point, we will shift to a 10-foot shared use path. And the benefit, I'll say the one evolution that's been made is that there's only this one adjustment from a dedicated cycle track and sidewalk to a shared use path. And this situation, this condition continues all the way to the community center. So same proposal that we had before. Essentially, we were making this community link. We just wanted to show in more detail how that was actually going to happen. Again, there will probably be evolutions once we get into construction documents, but this is a truth test to show that it is a viable connection. Next is the linkage to MWRA parcel, and I'm going to apologize. The graphics you saw was by my incredibly small but agile staff. These were my crafts during a meeting, and so in an attempt to get this information out quickly, you're stuck with my rudimentary graphics. Anyway, this is the link that we were talking about from our main street to Riverside Park and then ultimately the MWRA. And so similar condition, right? This is the abandoned kind of rec road as we know it, rudimentary graphics, providing that road bed with a 10-foot shared use path, continuing to that kind of bifurcation point where you can access rec road from the on-off access to the on-off ramp. And you can see the abandoned rec road coming in from the right. We would continue that shared use path with and provide a buffered system along that 12-foot travel lane that continues from the access to the on-off ramp towards Riverside Park. You get just to the foot of the Charles River Bridge, again, existing rec road with a 12-foot lane and very large shoulders, the on-access ramp to the left, and continuing that 10-foot shared use path, utilizing the 5-foot existing sidewalk, again, a buffered condition to the traveled roadway. Continuing further, just off the bridge, same condition. We would then, that 10-foot shared path would move up to a higher elevation and become the sidewalk and the shared use path would combine to create a continued 10-foot shared use path, again, maintaining rec road on the left in a buffered condition. Moving further west, right? Now all of that shared use path is up on the elevated condition. We might have to move the guardrail out a little bit. Rec Road continues as a 12-foot travel lane, variable shoulder as it pinches down as you move towards Rec Road. And again, getting to Riverside Park, making that final connection to Riverside Park on the right with a shared use path, and then providing a crosswalk across Rec Road to get to what I'll call the little island there, if you will, and providing a 10-foot shared use path that continues down the hill along the edge of the quote unquote existing MWRA access path or access roadway, and then continuing under the overpass. At this point, we run out of real estate with the supports for the bridge, and so it becomes a 10-foot wide shared use lane. But again, this is not a open to public access road. This is access for the MWRA. This road essentially goes nowhere other than the MWRA site. So again, no changes from what we talked about last time, just putting some proof into the conversations that we've had to date. Next item is the pocket park, and I think some conversations have been had about the character of these spaces. This is what we showed last time. We're going to focus really on the central green, the play space, and the amphitheater. Again, none of these are final conditions, just talking about the character and the evolution of these spaces as we see them. One of the things we talked about last time in response to MBBJ's recommendations was providing more public realm in sunny areas. And so on the left is where we were at the last meeting. And on the right is I'll say the codifying of those comments that we had suggested last time, where we move the loop drive to the south, we expand that sidewalk along building 4, helps to accentuate the retail that Jesse talked about, and you'll see in a little bit this idea of a farmer's market, which can be part of this solution as well. So essentially recognizing the suggestions we made last time and showing that we're going to incorporate those into our changes. Specifically, the character of these spaces. So that central green really is about a respite, but it's also about a flexible respite. So it's really about paved surfaces with a decent amount of green to soften the edges, large canopy overhead trees to mitigate heat island effect, as well as help create a room, and then an abundant amount of movable furniture so that this space has some real flexibility to evolve as a marketplace, allows the public realm on the sidewalks to expand and be flexible and inviting to all. The next space, I'm sorry, and then in conversations around the farmer's market or closing of the area for events, what you'll see here is not the end all be all, but is a prototypical diagram. So on the left side, we have parallel parking spots that is out of the fire access lane. On the right side, we have a live loading zone where we can't permanently park vehicles. And so you'll see on the left, if this was a market with a 10-foot by 10-foot tent for each stall, we could put those tents essentially in those parking spots and provide maybe 1 or 2 spots for support vehicles. On the right side, along building 4, because that's a live loading zone, we could provide parking, live loading, live parking for the stall vendors to park their vehicles, park their wares there, and then put the tents on the sidewalk and still have room with this expanded sidewalk, still have room for customers and public to move along the frontage of building 4 to access building 4, as well as the market stands as well. And then the opportunity to put a large bouncy house, larger tent, whatever it might be in that central green. So there's some flexibility both on the edges as well as internally within the structure. And just some images of what that might look like. Smaller vendors in the 10 by 10 tents, larger food trucks, essentially, as we all know them. Next conversation is about the kind of what used to be the amphitheater, but really the slope lawn. This space is much more of a respite. The focus is that kind of incidental interaction. We've created a couple of level lawn terraces and a series of social steps that you see in that middle picture. And so each of those terraces have a series of steps on the front, which invite people to sit, gather, look out over Main Street. And then at either end, both at the top and the bottom, having these large kind of communal benches at the back of sidewalk to really help bring people into those spaces, provide foster a sense of community, give an opportunity to sit both at the high as well as the low level within these spaces. Next is the play space. While we haven't picked features yet, the idea of providing both levels of play. On the bottom, you see like a little hut for 2 to 5-year-olds. On the top, you see much more physically challenging solutions for 5 to 12. most playgrounds follow those regulations of both providing equipment and challenges for both of those age groups, and we would provide that as well in this project. Lastly, the artful stairs that we had alluded to, trying to make that connection more viable. And again, we had shown these slides before, creating a mural, some movable furnishings, something to activate those edges as a way to, as we talked about, the Hansel and Gretel kind of effect of the breadcrumbs of the playground, the art, the activated public realm, the retail space, drawing people down from Grove Street into the space. That is the end of our content. Again, happy to take questions at the end, and I'll turn it over to Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name again is Michael Lawson. I'm with Minot and Wasco Architects and Planners. And we're excited to be here today to show you some improvements and enhancements to the architecture, specifically to building 2 and 3. So I wanted to show you what we originally had proposed in the application. And as you can see, we had a larger building for building 2 and 3 on the site that was not broken up as you come up to the roundabout and along Access Road and along Grove Street. And some of the comments that were made by some of the representatives were, how do we break down that area and how do we make sure that this is operating as a gateway to the larger new neighborhood that we're creating, but also to the larger community along Grove Street. And here you can see that we have now broken that building up into 2 distinct buildings along Grove Street and along the Access Road. And one of the things that we have also done is located the entrance to building 3 on that roundabout, and really having a presence and a gateway feel to the overall community as you come up to the roundabout along Grove Street. We think that that's a really great enhancement to the overall project. But one of the things that we had to do was shift that density to another building on site. And what we did was we increased the number of stories on building 1. So building 1 went from 6 stories to 7 stories. There was already the understanding of that being a larger building. It is located further away from Grove Street, and I believe is still within the allowable height that was in the special permit and in the zoning that was requested. So that was essentially the trade-off of what we're doing here tonight. And we have some graphics and some illustrations of the changes that this looks like in terms of perspectives and additions to the architectural vernacular that we're creating. So this was the originally proposed building 2 and 3. And I'll switch now to the now revised building 2 and 3. And you can see here that we've really increased the gateway atmosphere that you have along this roundabout. We've also changed the character of the architecture along building 2 so that you do have a sense of different styles that do complement each other, but give a distinct and unique feel to each of the buildings along Access Road and along Grove Street. So if you put these both next to each other, I think you really do see the enhancements that are happening and just the livability of the new revised scheme that we're presenting today. That revised scheme includes box bay windows, additional brick detailing at that corner, as well as a more vibrant entry to that building. In terms of building 2, you can see that we did change the architecture there. We brought in some architecture style that we've used on the other portions of building 2. And we think that that really offers a distinction there. We've also stepped back the building in different locations on the top floor. That allows for some recesses and some massing articulations that really helps the scaling of the project and the scaling of the streetscape along Grove Street. One of the other things that this does is it allows light and air into that courtyard that's located in the middle of building 2 and 3. And we think that that's a benefit for the residents as well as for the massing of the architecture in this location. So now we're going to move on to building 2, 3, but also building 1. And the difference is of adding that additional height to building 1. And this is now the difference between what we had proposed and now what we have revised. And you can see that we've maintained the architectural vernacular and the architectural detailing of building 1, but we've added that story. We still have the step back that's located at the top floor, but because this is located in an area that does not cast additional shadows onto Main Street, we thought that it was appropriate for the additional height. You can see that when we put these two things together and side by side, there really isn't too much of a difference here. And we think that it complements each other on either sides of Main Street. This is another portion and another updated rendering showing the main green area, as well as how we're adding that additional story to building 1. This was originally proposed, and this is the new proposed. You can see that the type of architecture, the style, all the different ideas that we were contemplating have remained and are intact with the overall new proposed additional story on building 1. And this is just a side-by-side comparison to show, really, we don't think that the additional story is a detriment to the overall development in this location. Yes. Sorry, that's okay.
No, I just want to clarify with Michael's comments that this does result in the unit count going from 750 to 757 and adds about 10,000 square feet, all on building 1.
Correct. Thank you, Steve. And that leads me right into this comparison of what we originally had proposed and what the revised proposal is in terms of square footages and metrics. Overall square footage originally was 886,000 square feet. We are now proposing 897. So as Steve said, about 10,000. We are increasing the amount of retail. That was discussed earlier on in the presentation, that we are adding additional retail, about 1,900 square feet of retail into building 4, which we think is an enhancement and something that was requested by the professionals in the response memos. As was just illustrated, 750 to 757, and there is a slight reduction in the overall parking in building 2-3. So there's a slight reduction in the overall garage parking that we are proposing. That leads us to building 6. And one of the things that we wanted to discuss on building 6 was the locations of the entry points and how each of these entry points allows for a really great amount of streetscape activity along Main Street, and also how you actually get to your car if you're actually parking in the larger parking deck. One of the big things that we have here, and I'll touch here, is that we have this main pedestrian parking garage entry that's located here, and I'll talk a little bit about that further. But we have broken the building in terms of its architecture to allow a transition there from the ground floor all the way up, as well as having a canopy and a sign that says that parking is located in an entrance, a pedestrian entrance to parking is located there. But also along this streetscape, we will be having retail entrances. One of the things that we are going to include in the plans is those entrance doors are going to be set back into the building to allow a presence. So those will be set back 3 feet. That will allow for those doors not to open into the sidewalk path and interrupt any pedestrians and cafe dining that's located along the street. Also, one of the things that I wanted to highlight here was the residential lobby entry. And we have some images of what that's going to really look like, but we have enhanced that in the original design to make sure that that had larger storefront windows, brick corbelling, and it was detailed so that you understood that that was a significant residential entry to building 6 along Main Street. And you can see here, I just wanted to blow up some of the imagery that we've already submitted, really showing that we do have a variety of architectural streetscape activity along Main Street, where we do change materiality. We do have expansive areas for cafe dining as well as on-street retail. And you can see some of the brick corbelling and brick areas that we do bring down to grade to allow for that to be a presence, to allow for larger storefronts, but also for that residential entry. You can see here with some of these, some of the new renderings that we have on the side here, you can see the differences in retail storefront materials, so that each storefront has its own uniqueness to it, but it is complementary as you walk down that street. And as you can see here, this is a blow up of the corner, which is at the main entry to Riverside. And you can see that that's where we do have the enhanced brick and brick corbelling there, because that is a significant presence that we want to illustrate. And the last slide that I have for you today is just a slide showing where the locations of the automotive entries to the parking garage are. And I want to highlight those very quickly. The main entry for most of the MBTA customers, as well as probably many residents as well, is located right here on this side of the street. And that's well positioned at the entry off of Grove Street and well connected to the drop-off locations and the other surface parking lot. A more convenient location for resident entry into the main parking deck is located here in this location. This allows for an easy in and out that can then be accessed off of Access Road and lead you to the greater street network. We think that that will be used mainly by residents as they navigate the new neighborhood. And then lastly, this is the entry right onto Main Street for the podium parking that's located under Building 2. And in that location, we feel as though that's appropriate for one entry in and out, and that we believe that that's an easy access for the residents of Building 2 and 3 to the greater network and to Main Street as well. So that, I think, concludes the enhancements that we've made to the building architecture. And I'll leave it off this. Thanks.
So Madam Chair, members of the committee, that completes our presentation. Obviously, we're here and happy to answer questions.
And before we counselors take a whack at it, I'm going to see if there are any members of the public. I already see a hand up, but I'm just going to say I'm really impressed and surprised by how much work and quality changes you were able to make in a short period of time. So kudos for you for that. I'm going to go to the public hearing part. Excuse me? Oh, that's right. Again. Here we go, Ms. Kemet. Yes, you.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Kat Kemet, Deputy Chief Planner. I think given the lateness of the hour and the amount of new material we've seen this evening, I would recommend we move to public comment and to discussion amongst the council.
I must have known that. No, it makes sense to me too. Ms. Belville, you've been having your hand up a long time. So you're up.
Okay, have I done better tonight? In
Excuse
terms
me?
of connecting, have I connected better? I usually unmute and mute
Yes.
myself a few
Yes,
times.
we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I think there doesn't seem like there's a lot of public comment, so hopefully you'll indulge me a little bit, but I think what would be most efficient is I did send a letter to the Land Use Committee, and it's interesting that much of what was covered by the petitioner is relevant. So the hour's late, I'm tired, so I'm going to read from it and abbreviate it and just add in a few comments. So at the September 16th meeting, I brought up the impact the project as proposed could have on the public who use Riverside MBTA parking lot. And for context, I want to share additional information with this committee regarding how and by whom this lot is used to help just inform questions that might be asked and information that could be provided. And some of the questions I have were also brought up in that meeting. And I think Serge Musato, who was with the peer reviewer, raised the same questions. And I do think that the petitioner attempted to address those. So that was very helpful. I want to talk a little bit. First of all, he made comments that it should be clear that the residents are only entitled to one parking space. And as I share more details about how the lot's used and by whom, I think that's a little unrealistic and unenforceable. Riverside MBTA lot is one of just a handful of lots that allow 24-hour parking. The other Newton location that also allows a 24-hour option for parking is Woodland. And the daily rate at Riverside runs for a 24-hour period from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's $6 for 24 hours. It's paid through the app, and you can pay up to 5 days for one session. So I just, in response to some of the comments about, paying for transaction, that data could be a little bit skewed because I could have one transaction, but I'm paying for 5 days of parking. So I just want to make sure that when we make those calculations and analysis, that we consider that. So just because there was one transaction doesn't mean that's 1 day of parking. That could be up to 5 days of parking at Riverside. And the reason people may park there other than taking the train include they may be boarding a bus that leaves to New York City, or have out-of-town residents who want to park there. So the fact that this is a parking lot that's basically open to the public and has no requirement that you be commuting on the train is just, I think, something that's important to keep in mind in terms of how people use this lot.
Miss Belleville, are you watching the time?
You'll cut me off if I'm
You're
running
already
it.
30 seconds over.
Want me to stop?
I was just thought you were looking at it at the screen. You're beyond the 3 minutes. Do you have much more?
I kind of do, but if you have a lot more in the public that want to talk, I'll stop.
Well, we generally try and give people
I understand.
3 minutes. And we did get your letter, and it sounded to me like Ms. Tibbetts covered a lot of what you were getting at with parking demand, but we appreciate your comments. Why don't I move on for now, okay? Thank you. Ewan Cameron.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Let me lower my hand. Ewan Cameron. I live at 248 Grove Street, kind of right down the street from Riverside. First, I wanted to applaud the changes. I think, particularly building 2-3, I think it looks far better broken up that way. And so I applaud your willingness to accept feedback and make changes. The one element I wanted to ask about was traffic along Grove Street. I think I heard in one of the last meetings, and apologies if I misheard, that you were going to stop left turns coming off of Grove Street into the MBTA lot, because this is going to add a ton of traffic, or a bunch of traffic along Grove Street. And I think it's unreasonable. I think we should try and stop that left turn, because I think Grove Street is going to back up if everybody is going to go into that main parking lot off of Grove, which is definitely the shortest route to get there, certainly for the MBTA and likely for the residents, as I think one of the speakers just pointed out. And so I'm curious, one, whether you are going to try and stop that left, or maybe I misheard, and two, how you're going to actually do that, because I haven't seen that signage in any way. And I do worry about a lot of people driving down Grove Street trying to take that left. Yeah, I think that's it. I again, applauds for making changes in a short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Ted Chapman.
My questions are about the bike pedestrian paths. The section, the image that showed on Grove Street, the green, new green shared use path, 10-foot wide, ends at Pine Grove. And I think Rob said that it would continue to the entrance to the community center. Is that correct? And if so, what's going to happen to the utilities? There's a whole lot of power lines there.
Mr. Adams is coming back to the microphone to be able to answer you.
My second question is, if you're coming out of the in a car, out of the development onto the CD road, what is the route for going on 128 North? Would you be merging into that right into the access road right away, or are you having to go down to Riverside Park and take a left so that's happening over by Riverside Park? I'm not sure what the traffic flow there is. I think those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Mr. Adams will reply.
Yeah, Ted, thank you. I just pulled up on the screen. So the pedestrian connection that you first alluded to will extend to the community center. I don't know right off the top of my head exactly what the termination is. It hasn't changed from what we have shown to date. But as we discussed, there would be that one shift from a dedicated cycle track and sidewalk to shared use facility, but happening just in that one location, which I think is a benefit that we talked about at the last meeting.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
then I'm just trying to fit the integration of the of cycle traffic and cars coming out going north.
Going north, plan north.
Coming out of your new entrance. If people were going to go out,
cars will, if you're on Main Street.
So coming out there, if you want to go north on 128, what happens to what's the
there's a new
Rob, I can take that.
Thanks.
If you're coming out of the main street and you want to go north on 128 or east or west on the Pike, you basically take a quick right and you access the CD road almost immediately.
Okay.
You do not have to go up to the park.
All right. So that seems like a pretty you've got some pretty high speed traffic coming off of 128, and it seems like a challenging entrance, but anyway, you'll figure it out.
Hey, Randy, while you're there, would you answer the question about the no left-hand turn into the project from Grove Street?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I tried to answer the access to 128 and north, but my speaker went out for some reason. But yeah, in terms of left turn lane, we are not allowing left turns in from Grove Street under the current plan. We're using Main Street as the main access point. While you can't make a left in, you can make a left out and a right out from there, as well as Main Street, same thing.
Mr. Chapman, does that answer your question?
I'm done. It seemed, I'm just, that exit out going north seems challenging, but thank you.
I think I could probably just clarify. I think one thing for Mr. Chapman to understand is the bicycle traffic would be fully separated from that entrance. Excuse me, David Roach with development team. And it would cross at the crosswalk across the Main Street entrance. So the vehicular traffic to 128 and the bike path are fully separated. There's going to be a significant buffer between them. So concerns about the speed of the highway and in the cycle traffic, they're going to be on opposite sides of the bridge abutments as you head down towards the railroad bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Cameron, do you have your hand up again?
Apologies. Very quickly, I'm curious how you're actually going to stop people from taking a left. Or is it just going to be a sign and hope for the best? Because I think it's going to be such a draw. Is there going to be a physical barrier or a way to stop people from a left, or just hope?
Here comes your answer.
Thank you. Randy, do you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. Listen, there's going to be wayfinding signs for access not only to the site but to the MBTA under the future plan. So people will be directed to where to enter the site, exit the site. It will be signed to not allow left turns if it ever became necessary, which I'm not sure it would, but we could put a physical barrier there, like a right turn channelization island or something if we ever had to do that. But I'm not sure that's necessary, honestly. You know, commuters know the routine, they know access and egress, and our site people will as well.
Okay.
that part can be a work in progress. Are there any other members of the public who would like to make comments or ask questions? I don't see any other hands. Ms. Belville, would you like another minute to finish up?
No, I will depend upon the members of the Land Use Committee to whom I wrote to address my concerns. Thanks.
Thank you. Perfect segue. We can take it into committee now, and I see Councillor Block with his hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. I am not going to speak for very long so that my colleagues have a chance to dive into this. First of all, I just want to say for the record that yesterday I and Councillor Lucas drafted a letter which we submitted to Attorney Bookbinder, asking them to consider the development of a hotel in this project. The Indigo Hotel has been closed for several years, but a hotel has been on this site since 1963. And the letter, which everyone on the committee has received, and which the planning department has also received, raises that in the context of the budget challenges that this city is facing and the need for more commercial space. That's just for the record. I just have a couple of questions. The redesign of building 2 and 3, which is a vast improvement over the first version. I really appreciate that. Is there a shadow study showing what the new configuration would be like during the winter solstice? Because that was a pretty dramatic image. That may not be available, but if it isn't, I'd appreciate seeing that. A question on the extension of the bicycle pedestrian shared path on Grove Street to the farthest entrance to the T. That stretch has a lot of foliage right now and helps to screen the MBTA parking, which is going to remain from Grove Street. And it looks like that foliage is going to be unaffected by this. I just want to confirm that because Grove is a scenic way and we want to keep it as scenic as possible despite all these changes. So that's, again, that's a question that can be answered later. I guess I just wanted to clarify a question on the parking plan. This 286 number, I wonder if it's just accidental that it comes up twice or if it's the same 286. But in the chart that showed 286 MBTA parking spaces in the surface lot, which is nearest to the train station, which is going to be retained by the MBTA and which is not part of this development, I think that 286 was included in the 980, and I just want to confirm that that's in the 980 and that the 280, that there isn't another 286 somehow floating around. I don't think so, but at some point I'll want to spend a fair amount of time just going through these the parking plan and especially the shared parking. And Miss Belville sort of has alluded to some of the difficulties of a shared parking plan when there will be only one parking space allotted per unit, and some of these families are gonna have a second car. That's just kind of the way things work in Newton. Those are my immediate questions. So I want to defer to other people to have a chance this evening while it's fresh.
Thank you, Councillor Block. It sounds to me like you've hit on 3 different consultants' specialties: architecture, shadow landscaping and parking. I see Mr. Bookbinder might be able to address all of them or bring the people up one-on-one to give quick answers to those
I'm
questions.
going to tag people in, but let me just say quickly, on the parking at Trio, we've done a study, has done a study. It comes out to about 0.89, I think. Most of these new developments, they're averaging less than one space per unit. At Riverside, some people will have none, some will have one, and there may be some with two. Michael, why don't you hit the shadow studies? Sure.
Yes, Mr. Lawson, you can answer the shadow study question perhaps.
So for the shadow studies, we will be preparing new shadow studies with the new massing for buildings 2 and 3, as well as the rest of the development. We will be doing an hourly on the equinox. I think that meets some of the questions that were within the urban planning comment review memo that we had. So we'll do hourly on the equinox. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the dates that we had, we're going to expand that to being hourly on those dates.
If you can speak into the microphone, that helps.
Sorry about that. We will provide the dates that we already provided in the application. We will provide additional hourly shadow studies on those dates.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Adams.
Thank you. In regards to the shared use path along Grove Street, we're confident that we won't have to remove any trees. Having said that, we may have to remove some limbs of the lower growing branches just for a shy zone or comfortable passing of that cycle track.
Thank you. Ms. Tibbetts.
The easy question, yes, it is the same 286. They may not be in exactly the same places, right? That's up to construction processes, but the 286 mid garage construction during that 18-month period is the same size lot that the MBTA will have for their exclusive use adjoining the station after construction. In regards to the 1-to-1 ratio, as Mr. Bookbinder alluded to, both nationwide data is trending under one space per unit for newer developments. And Massachusetts-based data specifically is trending well under 1 unit. So I would caution the counselors, all of the counselors respectfully, from thinking too much in terms of that's just how things work in Newton, right? Because your how things have worked is not necessarily how things are going to work in the future. There are huge generational differences in this kind of data, and that doesn't even take into account the possibility of reintroducing senior populations, whereas you're correct, right? Employees may have more vehicles, but the residents will have significantly less. So 1-to-1 is on the data actually fairly conservative is pretty conservative for a transit adjacent development like this one.
Thank you very much. Other counselors, other land use committee member counselors, specifically Counselor Leary.
Well, thank you for the presentation. That was a lot to take in, and I'll have to spend some time absorbing that. But since it just came up regarding the parking, my understanding is that some of the Trio and other areas, larger areas, with underground parking, that it's not all being utilized. Is there anything we can learn from the past developments that might be applicable to the Riverside development in terms of guiding us and giving us some understanding of?
Sure. So, we do have some hard data for Trio, and again, that shows it's under 1. All of the larger developments I'm doing, they're all at 1-to-1. The earlier projects, now I used to live at Woodland, Ted Tighe's project, and it was so underparked that I know Ted came back at one point, got permission to be able to rent those spaces, largely to people from the medical profession who would park at Woodland in his building rather than and then go into town. So no, I think there are lessons to be learned. I think, Elizabeth, we feel we have it right here at Riverside.
Give information.
Counselor Block.
If I could just, the original VHB study from 2019 projected that 95% of the commercial traffic would be vehicular and 75% of the residential traffic would be vehicular. Since this is almost entirely now a residential plan, it might be worth our knowing whether those numbers are still approximately correct for the new plan. And no one wants to overbuild parking at this site or any other site, but this is on top of the major interstate highway section in the Boston metropolitan area. This is going to be a very attractive place for people who want to get in their car and go in various different directions. So I don't personally think that Trio is a very good comparative benchmark for this. That's just my own perception. I'd love to be shown otherwise. So, but I think we just need to try to get our arms around this kind of information.
Well, I think that was a perfectly valid point to make, and I'm sure that the traffic and transportation engineers are going to give it a little thought and get back to us. Councillor Leary, were you all set? Councillor Laredo first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first of all, I want to associate myself with Councilor Block's remarks about comparisons to Trio. I mean, Trio is just a completely different situation. It's in the heart of the village center. You can walk to a grocery store. You can walk to shops downstairs. You can walk to City Hall. You can walk to Newton North High School. And none of that is true at Riverside, particularly because there's 20,000 square feet of retail there, and that's it. So this is not, and there's no commercial there. So somebody who might said, well, I can work and live a few hundred yards apart, that option doesn't exist anymore. And as Councilor Block said, this is literally next to 128. So while I don't want to overbuild parking, I really think we need to be a little bit more thoughtful and cautious about that. With that said, I fully understand that people use rideshare and other forms of transport that are somewhat different, and there are changing demographics there, but we ought to be cautious about our comparisons. I just want to go ask one other question. You know, this is Riverside 4, so tell me what's different between Riverside 3 and Riverside 4 in regard to your biking and driving along Grove Street. So I don't want to revisit something that I thought through very carefully, iterations 1, 2, and 3. And I realize there have been changes, but is this a similar plan to what we saw last time, or is it now really different? Just give me that summary.
Yes, so Rob Adams, Halverson. The stretch along the southern portion of Grove, along buildings 2, 3, and 5 is the same. It's a separated cycle track and pedestrian sidewalk. Because we're not developing the northern half, the right half of the project, we're providing a 10-foot wide shared use multi-path to connect to that end at closer to the Riverside T-stop.
And that we're talking on Grove Street.
On Grove Street, yeah.
Okay.
So everything from our driveway to the south is the same. Everything to the right, we're simply providing a 10-foot shared use path, really about flexibility and due to our limited right-of-way on Grove Street.
Just as a suggestion going forward, to the extent that a number of us have been here for at least a few of the Riverside iterations, if you're presenting something, just let us know that it's, hey, this is exactly the same as what we had before, or this is how it's changed. I think that'll just help the process.
Good
Thank you.
suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Next, we have Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the petitioner and their team on their presentation and getting all these memos and documents ready. I got a bunch of questions. I'll just say them all off, or statements. The first thing was the TDM. I asked about it at the last meeting, and if I heard correctly, the TDM, the main part of it that I was asking about is the T passes for 2 years, and they're available at some sort of a discount, I believe. I think that's a good start. I would like to see more from that TDM, particularly in T passes. I don't know why it has to be 2 years. Why can't it be 3 years or 4 years or 5 years? I want to see more. At the last meeting, I asked a question, and I don't know if I heard an answer today. But if you're on the top floor of building 2-3 in the southwest corner, and you're parked in a garage parked in the garage and on the 5th floor, how long will it take you to leave your apartment, get to your parking spot on the 5th floor, and then leave the site, either on 128 or Grove Street? How long does that take? We're talking about bike storage and bike usage. I was just wondering, because we were talking about Trio, do we have any data on bike usage from Trio? We talk about it a lot in special permits. We've approved a lot of buildings in the last few years, and I just don't know what data there is on bikes. I'm not talking about anecdotal evidence or people might bike. Like, how many people are biking? Are all the bike racks occupied? Another one was, there's going to be underground parking underneath building 2-3. And if all of us ever go to any of you go to usually it's a hospital, there's always signs. It's an electronic sign showing how much parking is available on each level. Is that going to be available here? And then the other thing I had, question I had, was from the public comments. I don't remember his name. He was talking about making a left turn from Grove Street into the site, and how is that going to be enforced? A sign is not enforcement. A sign is a sign. And I drive through West Newton Square from time to time. I try to avoid it, by the way. But if you're traveling east through the square on Washington Street, you cannot make a left turn onto Waltham Street, but cars do. I know, because I see it all the time. And perhaps we need better enforcement to prevent a car from turning left onto Waltham Street. Conversation for another day, but I would like to see some sort of a barrier or barricade installed on Grove Street so cars cannot go. Because if they miss the turn at the Rotary to enter in through Main Street, they have to go all the way into Auburndale and circle around and then turn right into the site. So I don't know. That's just my comments for now, but I really would like an answer on how long it will take to leave the site if you're on the top floor of building 2-3.
So that one, we actually have, it's in the written responses. We filed, Councilor Lucas, but Kathy just pulled it up on screen. It's about 4 to 5 minutes.
425, not 45.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Yes, 425, right. I did want to address Councilor Lucas's other comments. We don't have any data on bicycles. We'll see what we can come up with. It's a fair question. We really don't have anything. On this left-hand turn, Randy touched on briefly. First of all, Randy, is my recollection that we may have, I think we can put a barrier up, Councilor Lucas, but I think we have to go to traffic council for that, Randy?
Yeah, I think that's right. And then the intention wasn't to do it out of the gate, because with the wayfinding, with the fact that it's a commuter rail, it's repetitive, and the residents are going to know how to get in and out of the site. We didn't think it would be necessary, but if it is, certainly it can be a channelized island that would really make it very, very difficult for somebody to make a left if they could at all.
Okay, and David, one clarification. You're going to have. There's only 2 floors here. So there will not be, I know what you're talking, when you go into the garage, it tells you there are 3 spaces. It's only 2 levels available to the public, so there is no plan at present to have that type of a piece of equipment.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on two things. The first
Sure.
thing is that electronic sign. So what I'm concerned is someone going into building 2, 3 in the parking garage. They want to get a parking spot. They go down to that first level, no parking spot. They get down to that second level, no parking spot. Wouldn't it be easier if we just tell them before they enter, no parking spots? Like,
For building 2 and 3, because it's located underneath the building, those will be assigned spaces. So only the people that are living in building 2 and 3 would have access to that parking deck. So there would not be a free flow of traffic in and out of that space.
excellent answer. Thank you. And Mr. Buckbinder, if this project is approved and built, you and I are going to the top floor of building 2, 3, and then we are going to walk to the 5th story of the parking garage. We're going to get in your car and we're going to try to leave the site and do all that in 4 to 5 minutes. Okay.
Well, Councilor Lucas, that's fine. I'm going to say, I'm going to bring along Mr. Roach and Mr. Hart, since they're the ones who came up with the number.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, I think Ms. Tibbetts is passing you a note.
Oh.
too. Maybe she's got a different answer. Okay. Are
All
we
set.
all set there? All right, Councillor Albright. And then Greenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wanted to thank you for the new plans for the buildings 2, 3. And I will need to look at them a little bit more closely rather than, on the screen. It was fast. And so I'm sure you're giving them to us in paper, so I'll be pleased to look at them, and they look like it did a lot of changes. And thank you for the explanation about the pocket parks as well. I'm still not there. I just remember a comment that was made about the Austin Street Plaza. They bolted down they have a lot of what do you call those chairs? Adirondacks chairs, and they were all movable. And as of this summer, they bolted them down to the ground because they were moving ways that were unanticipated, and so and even disappearing. So I'm wondering about all your movable furniture and how that's going to work, but that's just a question for you. And the other thing I just wanted to say was in our last zoning and planning meeting, we had the chamber come with a bunch of folks who were talking about parking issues. And one of the members of the Economic Development Commission told us that the parking is changing for the younger people in particular. They don't own cars as much as we would have expected to own cars. And the number, I don't have the numbers with me, but I would be glad to, get them from the presentation that was made and share them with this committee about the changes for younger people. And anecdotally, I was talking to a friend at the dog park who has a 16-year-old daughter, and she told me that only one of her 15 friends is going for a driver's license. The others have no interest in it. So it was sort of anecdotally bearing out what I'd heard last week in zoning and planning. So I think we may need to think about parking in a new way for the future. Just a suggestion.
I think that's what Ms. Tibbetts was getting at when she mentioned there are generational differences. And I was thinking of old people like me versus 16, 24, or 32-year-olds may have different driving. Do you want to speak before Councilor Greenberg?
Say, rather than relying on anecdotes, why don't we look at the number of people with registered cars in the city with our population? I actually think that number, on whether we like it or not, is going up, not down. So we ought to look at data, not just anecdotal evidence.
May I comment? I will be glad to provide you the data that was provided to us from the Economic Development Commission.
We can look at local data, regional data. I didn't consider that anecdotal, but go ahead. Councilor Greenberg. Oh, you want to answer?
Yeah, one quick thing. I've been corrected on the 4 to 5 minutes, Councilor. See how I can get into trouble. Scott has an amendment or an asterisk.
Hey everyone, Scott Lombardi with Mark Development. Just want to clarify one thing is that the 4 to 5 minutes specifically excludes vertical transportation. So the wait time for elevators and the time on that elevator isn't included. It's just the walk time from entry floor to entry floor. But because the amount of time you have to wait is variable, it was hard to plug it in there.
Take the stairs.
I just wanted to give Steve a little bit of buff.
Councillor Greenberg was next. Do you want to, okay, you come after her then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. I had sent a bunch of comments and questions on September 25th, so I think those will be answered in the future. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, well, I have a couple right now anyway. So could you describe how children living on the site will walk to the Williams School, and has that been evaluated by the Safe Routes to School folks?
I mean, the walk to Williams School will be the same as you have out there today, except for the enhancements that we're making along the property's frontage.
So overall, it should be safer for the children
Yeah,
to walk from your site.
As an overall, for the portion of the site, you know, that we front, or the road that we front, it's going to be much improved.
And how much
particularly on the other side of the bridge as well, if students are coming from that direction.
Okay. And how close to the school does your improvements get to the school?
Well, it ends right at the MBTA lot, where we've agreed to put in a 10-foot shared path.
And do you know how far that is from the school?
Excuse me?
Do you know how far that is from the school?
Distance-wise, I'd just be guessing, but I'd say about a half a mile. Yeah.
Well, I would support having an extension of that to directly to the school.
Yeah.
It's just an ask. And then you presented that you're increasing the overall project in the number of units.
7 more units.
Yes, by virtue of the change, we wanted to add the square footage we lost in the building 2-3 reduction to building 1, because that's where we felt it was most appropriate. And you have to do a full floor. It's difficult to do, you know, our top floor is already stepped back. So to put another partial floor on top of a partial floor architecturally just wouldn't work.
Right, I understand. So I'm just wondering how that would affect the number of IZ units in that breakdown.
Yeah,
So
it would increase by, it's a fractional amount, 1.4,
Okay.
based on the current ordinance.
Okay, so then I would like to also learn how those IZ units, the total IZ units will be broken down by bedroom in the future at the next meeting. And then also, I'm looking forward to the discussion of the I&I mitigation funds. I don't remember that being.
Yes, stay tuned,
Okay.
October 21st.
Okay, great. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenberg. Councillor Lebovitz.
So as I understand it, 10% of the parking spaces will be EV charging stations, and a possibility of 10% more. Is that correct? I just want.
Vitals, right?
10% will be provided actual chargers, and another 10% will be EV ready, wired.
And if there's a demand over time for more, how could that be accommodated? Or can it?
It actually can be, and that's a beautiful thing about the technology. It's actually evolving as we speak, where they have demand management systems built into these chargers. So the chargers have what they call smart panels that can adjust the load to cap out the total amount of electricity needed for the chargers. So some will be in use, some won't. So that helps manage some of it, but then they can also throttle them back. So you can add more.
So if beyond the 20% capacity that you're kind of designing for, if there was a need for 25 or 30, it's easy to up that is what.
It is easy to upgrade, and there will be some additional buffer within the electrical service we get from Eversource, but we've factored that into our demand letters to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from city councilors? Councilor Block.
I'll be quick again. I think this car ownership question is very interesting. I'm not sure the data exists yet, but I know the traffic engineering profession is working on it. One of the things that happens as car ownership goes down is that rideshare usage goes up. And that brings me to a concern that I don't think much time has been spent on, at least talking about in other forums. But a lot of work has been done on the external traffic patterns, the roundabouts and all those wonderful arrows that you see up there. The internal traffic pattern has me worried. Ted Chapman asked earlier about the exiting, which will be heavily used, I think, heading north onto 128 and then being able to access the Mass Pike east or west. If that backs up into this development, we could be looking at some serious delays of people getting out of the garage, whether it's under building 2 or 3, or whether it's building 6. And I don't want that to happen. So I think we've got competition between the people who live there and the commuter drop off and pickup, which is going to have traffic going in and out relatively quickly. I'm actually very happy that there isn't an office building, because if there was a third pattern of traffic to an office building, I think that would make this even harder to manage. But I think we need to think about that and just figure out what the chances are of queuing that's going to back up and clog this. One of the earlier presenters used the phrase tenant first. I really like that phrase. Of course, I thought tenant were the 750 units that are going to be occupied at some point. I wasn't thinking so much of the retail tenants. So I think we've got 2 tenant groups here that I hope we will hold very closely in our minds, and that the tenant residents, that's one reason why I think about this internal traffic pattern and how that's going to work, and what sort of contingency plans we might need in order to unclog it if it gets clogged. But I just need to mention the very minimal park space, bless you, that is provided in this development, and that I really would hope that some more thought can be put into that, so that it isn't just the very young children, but older kids will have a place internally or externally. I could go either way on that. So those are just a couple things on my mind just following this presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Block. And I would say older people, not kids, who might want to experience the open space. And I would say when the retail consultant was talking about tenant friendly, I was thinking about the people who might be like me, who would go there, who don't live there, who are not renting those spaces, but who are going to visit those retail shops or restaurants. That's like a third level of tenant friendliness. I think that's it for us for tonight. It's a little after 10. For those of you who do stay up late watching all the land use committee meetings, because you love this and it's so exciting, our next meeting is October 14th. Riverside will not be back before us then. We will see Riverside back here on October 21st for only the partial groupies. You can come back the 21st. The rest of you, you can come on the 14th. Motion to hold?
Motion to hold.
I see his hand up.
It is my ward after all.
Absolutely. I was looking to you for that. All in favor of keeping this open, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.